Good evening, and welcome to the Littleton AFRAC Committee meeting. It is just a little bit after 7:30. Call the meeting to order. And we've got a pretty brief agenda tonight, but pretty substantial agenda. So, meeting is open. We will have some public input. We'll do an introduction of our designer for the Alumni Field renovation, Alumni Facility renovation. Have another opportunity for public input, and we'll go over minutes and we'll adjourn. So when we go into public input, I'll just ask that if anybody has any public input and wants to be recognized, just raise your hand. I'll call on you. Just state your name and your address, and any questions or anything you wish to say, please just direct it through the chair, and we'll all be good. So, that being said, I'd like to open it up for public input if anybody would like to be heard. Okay. Move right on then. So tonight we have with us three folks from Gale Associates. I'll allow them the opportunity to introduce themselves, but they are here to present a couple of options for us for the renovation of Alumni. And as they go through, if you do have questions, I'd ask you to just kind of let them go through their presentation. And this is going to be kind of a fluid meeting, but I'd rather give them the opportunity to do their presentation, and then we can come back at them with any questions or any concerns we have. Typically, we'd like to have the committee members offer their input and ask any questions they have. Some of your questions may be answered by questions the committee members ask, and then we'll open it up for public input. So that may change, but that's the way I'd like to try to proceed. Without any further ado, I'd like to introduce John Perry from Gale, and you can do the introductions of your colleagues.
Well, thanks for having us in, and again, I'm John Perry from Gale Associates. I'm the project manager for this project, and we're excited to have been selected to be the designer for the project. It's an exciting project, and we've met last week, got some great feedback. Initially, we came up with a couple of schemes, options that we're going to present tonight. First, want to do a quick introduction of the rest of the project team members, or at least a few of them. Here with Maggie Laracy from Gale Associates, project engineer, and with Sal Canciello from S3 Design Architects, who will be the architect for the building, restroom, concessions, amenities type building that we have on the project. So I passed out an agenda for everyone, which is a little bit more administrative, I guess. I think maybe what I'll do is just jump into the options, because that's what everyone is probably excited to see, and then we can hit some of these items at the end of the meeting if we have time. A lot of this stuff we've already gone over too with the AFRAC last week in the building committee. So I think what I'll do is hop right in, because we have a lot to. I think we have a lot to cover. We have three options, like I said. We want to talk a little bit about the building program and the cost estimates as well. So I'm going to get up, I think, and
There are some mics here, John, so maybe if you want to leave that where it is, you're going to be up at the board.
yeah.
So you might be okay if you're at the board, as long as you speak,
Okay.
you project. And if not, you tell us.
Let me know.
Yeah, she will.
Sounds good. Maybe I'll do this. Maybe
I see her
I'll
waving vigorously.
do that. So I passed out to you folks anyhow as a sheet that looks like this. Three options that we have, because these, at first glance, and hopefully everyone can see this. Next time we'll bring laptops, we can put it up on the screens, but this is a little bit easier to point to sometimes for us. Good for everyone? Can everyone see that?
You need a camera on that?
I can't see all the detail, but when I'm talking about it, it'll pop. We'll go like this a little bit. Okay. So when we interviewed, let me back up kind of real quick here. When we interviewed, and I think a lot of people saw this plan last week, this was our first stab at the project. Based on information from the RFP and some of our initial thoughts. And we presented this, we talked about this last week a little bit. We talked about, I think the big thing in this that we needed to go back and kind of rethink was probably the playground area. This scheme was taking that area away. We intended to reconstruct some of that, but I think originally, before we had really gotten to the site, we didn't realize the extent of the play space out there, the swing sets, all, etc. So what we did is we went back and we kind of rethought that more specifically, and also trying to keep budget in mind, and we're still not quite there, so we'll talk about that. We have some decisions that we need to make. We tried to, where are the lights? Can we keep the existing lights? What can we keep on this site, rather than, it'd be great if we could just blow it all up and redo it with a nice fancy parking lot and landscaping and things like that, but we might not be able to, just where the numbers fall into place. So that's where we're at now, and that's what we've done. So option one, and the options that we present, originally when we did this, we had south facing this way, which kind of drove me crazy. It should be facing up, typically. So when you look at the options, they're flipped like this. Okay, so option one is basically, we've done a survey, we've done an actual field survey now, so we have good existing conditions information out there. We've located things like lights, things like the playground. We know where all those areas really are. So we started with, let's try to keep the existing lights, which are here, 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 and here. And let's try to fit the field in there to try to, the lights they're older, vintage. They were 1993. I think we talked to Musco, who manufactured the lights. I believe they were in 1993. They're a little bit older. Technology's come a long way since then, but we were actually at the girls' soccer game before this, real quick, just checking the site out, and the lights don't look too bad. I think if it was a budget consideration, we could probably make that work. We actually did talk to Musco about the implications of reusing those, because this field may have to shift one way or the other. It's getting wider. So if it was a brand new site with brand new lights, they would position them exactly. We would do a photometrics plan, and we'd try to get 50-foot candles average on the field, starting out. If we keep the existing lights, it will be less than ideal, but they could reposition those lights to make it work. So that is a possibility. So that was kind of where we started this layout. And then again, we were trying to save the playground, so we respected that. We're putting in the new bleachers here, and then in this scheme, it's like, okay, where is the building going to go? Where's the main entrance going to go? So we tried. The first scheme was back here, where the existing ticket and concessions area is now, which is nice. It's closer to the middle school parking lot. It's close to the bleachers, but it's a pretty far walk from the parking on the south side. So you'd really have to if you're parking way over here, you have to walk all the way around to get there, because you really want to funnel people into one spot, probably take tickets here still. So it's a little bit of a farther walk. It still works, but that's just one challenge. We're adding about 122 parking stalls. I shouldn't say adding, because you have some parking here now. There's a lot of bus parking. It's not really striped very well. It's a lot of unused space. So we kind of redid this parking layout, and what we're showing between this parking layout and a little bit here along the edge of softball is a total of 122 parking spaces. I don't actually know how many are out there currently. We were just out there now, and there might have been 50 cars parked out in that area there probably. And it's pretty much a little bit undefined. The other kind of con to this building location is it's a far run for the utilities. The sewer and the water is out in the driveway here, and we'd have to run those a little bit farther this way. It's not a deal breaker, but something to consider. And then the softball orientation, we have flipped it this way to make it more efficient, lining up with the end zone, where we've got a 5-foot kind of pathway between the two, just for some pedestrian access through there. Another nice thing about this is you've got the working end of your softball near the building, which would theoretically have restrooms and concessions and other amenities if budget allows, which is also near the bleachers. So you have this nice kind of entrance area here. Get your ticket, get your concessions. You can hang out. You can probably get some picnic tables in here. We're taking a little bit of this open recess space, but there's still a good amount that's left over. And then you can kind of come over here to your bleachers, and these would be under accessed bleachers, so there would be vomitories kind of going up through rather than in the front or on the sides. So the fact that we're not showing any access like on the back, it's just you literally walk underneath these bleachers and come up the stairs from inside. We would have a handicap lift here as well to access the press box. So that's option one. And I'm going to save the cost discussion to last. And
John, is it best if we have any questions, do you want between each option, do you want us to ask, or do you want us to hold them all to the end?
it's up to you guys.
Is there any input, or do you want to kind of digest everything and then
I
go?
like
or-
easy one.
Yeah.
If you have one-way traffic going in, how do you get out?
Yep.
Is that important?
You want to get out? So we try to maximize parking here, and what we've done is obviously this is two-way traffic. You come in here, and then you could make a choice. You can come down this way, and you've got one-way drive with diagonal parking,
I don't.
and then you come around here, and this is two-way through here.
Oh, I see.
So this is double loaded, perpendicular parking, more kind of standard parking. So this could be your drive-through to access the Russell Street School as you currently do, and then this could also be your exit through there, and then this is literally just a one-way. If for some reason you can't find a parking spot there, you can just loop back and come back out this way. I'll go to option 2. You guys are good with
Do
that.
you mind just leave that up there, just
Yeah.
since you already addressed one question? In the back of that, where the pathway goes down to Russell Street School right now, where you put the concessions,
Back through here.
I'm not exactly sure where the existing
Oh,
pathway
it comes
is.
through here. It comes through and comes all the way through
So
here.
it still exists with this plan? Or would it be eliminated?
It could still, it would probably extend off of, it would probably be reconstructed in this portion and then extend off of the entrance area here.
Okay.
Or we could save it and have it come around the
But to
building.
consider it, I mean, that pathway has to remain in some way, shape, or form.
We could make that work. The consideration you want to take into account is just control to the fields.
Right.
And if this was truly separate from like where you take your ticket and go in, we could make that work. There's room to do that. We could have a little separation. You can come in at one point here, and then you decide, okay, am I going to walk along this path over to Russell Street, or am I going to go in and watch a game?
Okay.
That's easy to do.
It's hard for me to see that from here, but that's the utility corridor going into the Russell Street School.
Right.
There's an electric duct bank and a gas line
Gas,
right back there,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Yep. Yep.
I think there's a fiber cable.
Right.
Yeah, there's a water line that comes through here, so some of those utilities in this scenario may need to be reworked. And this building here as well is, again, these were within the last week we came up with 3 options. So
Yeah,
these
no,
are-
it's-
the building could go in this general area. So if we had to kind of work it around the water and the gas line, we could figure that out, I think. And in this scheme, this building is a lot bigger than it's probably going to end up being as well. And the other couple we showed, it's a little bit scaled back.
Hey Chuck, Judy Austin, 3 Pamela Way. Not that you can see me on TV, but I'll still put up the audience. The question I have is, there's a lot of students that go back and forth between the middle school and Russell Street, so I'm not sure that Gale Associates is aware of that. and I think that's what you were trying to get to.
It was that as well as utilities, because that is the main corridor for the utilities, but it's certainly.
And I know Task now, the after-school program, Park and Rec runs, they actually go and use the playground at Russell Street.
Okay.
So,
Where do they come from?
the middle school,
Okay.
They go down the path.
and they go down the path.
Okay. That's good to know.
It's just a,
Yep, I didn't know that.
Raise your hand.
I did, you couldn't see me.
I was facing this way.
Great.
Thank you.
Option 2 is the same field location, the same, we're gonna save the 4 existing lights, the same place that the bleachers are going, saving the playground, the same parking orientation. What changed was, we said, okay, what if we could have more of a centralized entrance area to the facility between this parking area and the middle school parking area? And what we did was we shifted softball back to make this fit. We shifted it right up against, basically right up against the not right up against the property line, but closer to the property line, which kind of shifts out here, as far as we thought we could. We're using, I think, a 200 or 190 outfield distance, which is nice for high school. So we were able to get that entrance area here with the building in this area. So you have some kind of hangout space outside, and you can come through the facility and in. And we have a wider walkway between the field and the softball field.
Yeah.
It's about 25 feet wide. It'd be a nice corridor through there. We thought we could do, a row of trees down the center, or flagpoles, or something nice with some seating in there, some hangout space, some viewing space on either side.
Lacrosse netting.
Yeah, in each of these schemes, we'd have netting for the end zones, probably the 2 end zones, and then some for the softball field, either the outfield or probably the third baseline, because if you're hitting a foul ball over here, you need to protect for that. So we budgeted for X amount of feet of safety netting in the cost estimates. And then this area back here, you get, the thing that is a detriment about this plan is that you have your restrooms and concessions here, and it's a little bit far away from your bleachers. So if you need to use the restroom, and the restroom should be 300 feet from the bleachers, and in this scheme it's a little bit longer than that. By code, it's 300 feet. They'll give you a little bit of wiggle room on that. They don't seem to be so hard and fast on that typically, as long as you're kind of in the ballpark. But this would be your restrooms and concessions. We thought about doing restrooms, back here, concessions here, or vice versa. But then you have, 2 buildings you need to plumb. It gets a little bit tricky. But this could be like an open-aired structure for covered space, teams gathering, or
Plaza.
some sort of a seating area for folks if it starts to rain or something like that. And then option 3, one other thing that I didn't mention about option 1 and 2 is that the solar orientation for the seating here is not ideal, because the sun's going to come and set kind of like this way. And in the afternoon, I assume people get sun in their eyes. They're sitting there in the bleachers. Ideally, you'd have it on the other side of the field, so the sun's at your back. So that's what we did in option 3.
What?
So option 3,
Sits in the west, right?
Yeah.
Sits behind the bleachers, I think, John.
west is over here. It's kind of,
So
north
that's
is this way, so west is kind of like here.
Yeah, so it's setting kind of along where the existing concession stand is. It sets kind of over the middle school.
Over here.
Yeah.
So it's not as bad as you might think. It kind of sets this way. Not an issue, is what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. It's bad. If you're facing the middle school, it's bad. If you're going up for a pass and you're looking back for the ball,
Yeah.
Right.
it's bad.
In option 3.
But that's
Yeah, typically how you think about the solar, the movement of the sun is it kind of comes from east to west, obviously, but it does kind of swoop through the south a little bit. So in the late afternoon, I would think it would be kind of over here, shining kind of this way. So typically, when we were thinking about that, we put the bleachers back over on this side of the field. The second reason we did that was we liked option 2, having the building and the entrance area here more central to both parking lots, shorter utility connections for sewer and water and other things in this area, and this allowed a closer access to the grandstand seating there as well. What this does, though, is this whole field shifts this way towards the playground, so you can't keep the existing lights. And we'd be cutting into the swing sets a little bit. We're still saving the playground and all that other space. We're just coming into that swing set area about 10 feet, which, being out there, there's a lot of space there. Doesn't seem like that huge of a deal, or it's probably cheap enough to move those back and rebuild that area with all the sand. But again, you do need to have new lights in this scheme. I think that was the big difference between those two. And in option 2 and option 3, we have only 105 parking spaces as opposed to the 122 because we lost the parking along this radius here.
Quick question.
Mm-hmm.
On option 2, is there any way we can make the entrance in that corner where it is,
Here.
but put the concessions back where they basically are now? Like, not so much that way, like over on the utility line,
Parallel to
but
the-
parallel with the bleachers, and then you'd have continuous concrete all throughout there, right? Yes.
Yeah, so there's a couple of ideas that we've talked about already after we came up with the cost estimates of how we can save some money. And one of the ideas is that the existing concessions building is, while it would be great to have a new concessions stand in conjunction with restrooms, maybe we can relocate that existing building and maybe do a couple of upgrades to it. But maybe that could essentially stay, possibly. In this scheme, it's right here.
Oh.
It's possible that it could stay where it is.
I didn't know it was that close.
It's right here.
If it stayed where it was, I'd say you'd probably have to put the serving areas in the back. Because you're right on top of the field.
Right, yeah.
No queuing area, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yep. You're right. But these are things that we're thinking about.
Now, does the field get moved, do the lights get moved in option 2?
No.
And with the lights, did Musco say they could add additional bank? So right now we have 2 rows, could they add a third?
They would need to check the pole design and the foundation design in existing current building codes, because building codes have changed since, in the last, since 20 years ago they were put in. So if they do any modifications to them, they would need to check that.
Kind of piggybacking on that question, I can't imagine it's an all or nothing, like, we just leave the lights we have, is there a way to just add 1 or 2 poles versus redoing? Because it sounds like you might run into, curveballs if we try to modify the existing,
Certain retrofits and
yeah,
things like that.
yeah, or just add a pole or 2. And obviously it's money, but it seems like it's not an all or
It's
nothing.
a possibility. It's a possibility. Typically it's a 4-pole system, so you'd be talking about adding another pole, maybe down here, smaller pole. We would talk to them about how to get a more ideal light level. Another thing that we could do is put in infrastructure and foundations for new lights where they would want to be, so that in the future, that you could basically just slip the pole and the new fixture on top of it. That's still a cost to pay for the infrastructure and the foundation, but it's about a third of what you'd be paying for the actual pole system.
Prepare for us to do it down the road.
It's still more money than just keeping what you have, but
It would be easier to do it down the road.
Yeah.
because The foundations would be there.
Absolutely, you won't be bringing equipment out onto the already.
yeah, to do it in the future is very difficult because it's about a 20-foot deep hole, 3 feet wide in the ground. You have to de-water. You have to access it with a big drilling machine. It makes a big mess. And so you really want to put, if you wanted to think about doing new lights at any time in the future, you really want to try to consider that now.
To that end, new lights, and I think that we're gonna get costed out of it, but at the softball field, was there any thought about the potential of lights to the softball field?
Not at this time. Maybe we should go through the cost
Yeah,
estimates.
that's probably gonna,
First,
sure, go ahead, Kelly.
Kelly Mullen, 25 Washington Drive. When, on the two plans where we reorient the entrance to the other side, do the existing lights, would we know if they light up that entrance area well enough, or would we have to add, not necessarily lights as bright as we want on the field, but potential other lights to light up the pathway and the entrance?
I think that's kind of an assumption that there is gonna be lighting for pathways and for the buildings and that kind of thing, outside of the lights that we have right now for the athletic surface. Am I
Yeah.
correct in making that
Yep.
assumption? Yeah.
Exactly. Just from being out there, early tonight, you can see that even the outfield of the softball field right here is pretty dark.
It's dark, yeah.
Yeah. So I think that we would need to add some site lighting in there, whether it's just decorative 15-foot tall lighting or
Poles,
parking lot
building
type
up
lighting.
Right.
There's several ways we can.
Sure. Bollard lighting, things like that. So we would consider those sorts of things. So let's go through the costs.
John, I think, I know I said I was gonna wait till the end of it, but Mark, you.
I just had one question. Was there, Mark Rambacher, Hartwell Avenue, was there any consideration to moving the concession stands to, or the bathrooms to, like, the right of the bleachers, where they could be used by other sports, like the track teams and the baseball teams, and be more accessible?
I'm gonna address it and then I'll let John jump in, but
Okay.
I think a lot of the consideration that's been put into these designs has been to reduce cost as much as possible, and running the utilities all the way across, pretty much the furthest point on the site, is my guess as to why you didn't cite, there's plenty of real estate over there, and that's where the first design, did you see the first design? Not the first design tonight, the first design that, the colored rendering that John brought in from the interview. There was, all of the concessions and restrooms and everything were down by the Russell Street School, which would have been great for that purpose, and that's something that did come up in the past. But, I mean, that's something we can take a look at, but I'll let you.
Yeah, the reason we did it, the main reason we did it, is that we're trying to save the playground as much as we can. We'd be cutting into, at least be cutting into the swing set area and kind of that open space there. And then, it's again, far away from the middle school parking. So if you're coming from there and you're trying to get into the main kind of venue where you're gonna get your ticket and your concessions and then go get your seat, I don't know how you do that from over here.
I think Mark was just looking at bathrooms, and then you're
Gotcha.
talking about two different buildings that are plumbed and electrical, and so we're gonna have some duplicity, whereas we're trying to keep everything in one building for cost reduction, which is why I answered the way I answered, but, so there is the possibility that we could put the restrooms, and I think we could probably, physically, it would fit without taking any of the playground, but I think we're gonna be expensed out of it. But it's a good option, and I agree with, and that's one of the things we said, I think in the interview process, we brought up the fact that would be great, because then track could use it, and
Baseball and track and.
the
Yeah.
baseball field is right there, and soccer,
Mhm.
5 nights during the week.
Mhm.
So, and youth football's using it now with the middle school field not being available, although youth football will be on the multipurpose field. Good, Mark? All right. Go ahead, John, I'll let you go right to the the numbers?
So, I don't know if I'll pass them out at this, which is because they're very preliminary. We haven't actually designed anything. We haven't actually engineered anything yet. So we haven't figured out, utilities. We haven't figured out how much, dense grade aggregate under the parking lot we have. We're using some general numbers, but I think we're really close to being in the ballpark with these. I'm comfortable with the numbers of where they are, at least for decision-making purposes right now. So let me just kind of go through them.
Can I ask you this?
verbally.
Can you give us the big number for each of them? Are you comfortable doing that, and then we can kind of break it down?
Yeah, well, I'm gonna go through, let me go through what we have included in this, okay? And then we'll talk about it. So we broke it out into the multi-purpose field, which includes demo of what's there, road control, site prep, the actual turf preparation, there's the concrete anchor curb that goes around the whole thing, there's drainage, there's subsurface drainage, there's the field carpet itself with infill, which we've budgeted for some type of an alternative infill other than crumb rubber, which is a premium of somewhere between $200,000 and $400,000. Sport striping, logos, fencing, gates, slide gates, access, safety netting. There's a component for miscellaneous storm drainage. We've budgeted for athletic equipment, football goals, pads, soccer goals, lacrosse goals, team benches, a flag pole, which I know you have a nice flag pole, so we're able to take that out. A new scoreboard, new seating with 817 seats, a press box, a wheelchair lift, a new PA system with electrical and data connections, various walkways and pavements, and reconfiguring athletic lighting. So all that added up, we're at 1.7 million.
What option?
Option one. Option 1 and 2 are basically the same.
That's no buildings.
No buildings, no softball, no parking.
That was what,
1.7 million.
1.7. We go a little more exact, but 1.7. And then for softball, again, road control, site demo, site prep. You've got the creating the infield with the new clay infield mix, some under drainage, the outfield, new natural grass field, irrigation, under drainage, backstop, fencing, safety netting, dugouts, scoreboard, foul poles, and bases. That is approximately $414,000. The amenities building, and we have Sal's come up with some footprints, and I want to talk about, after I go through this stuff, I think one of the things that we're going to need to talk about is the program for the building, what we're going to do. So we've, in the cost estimate here, we've assumed a 1,500 square foot building. It might end up being 1,000 square feet, it might end up being 2,000 square feet. We don't know yet because we haven't made any decisions. But based on our experience on the buildings that we've done recently in the past, publicly bid, they're about $350 a square foot, $300 to $350. We use $350. Plus the sanitary connection, electrical connections, water services, etc. We're at $542,000 for a 1,500 square foot building. Probably restrooms, concessions, maybe a little bit of storage and not much else.
Can you repeat that number?
542.
542.
And then for parking lot, and miscellaneous site improvements. At this stage of the game, we typically use a per parking stall budget estimate at about $3,500 a parking stall. And again, that's assuming a full, new gravel base, pavement,
9 by 18.
some landscaping in there, curbing, some lighting, some drainage. So that number kind of incorporates what a typical parking lot would be per parking stall. And once we actually make some decisions and get a little bit further along, we'll do out quantities of pavement, quantities of gravel, and all this stuff to kind of nail that down a little bit better. But it's a good budget number up front. So at 122 parking stalls, at $3,500 a parking stall, plus assuming demo of existing pavement and a budget estimate for some miscellaneous site walkways that we didn't capture in that number, we're at $457,000 for parking and walkways. And then we threw in a budget number of $100,000 for landscaping, and that would include if we wanted to do any decorative pavers, any like donor recognition, actual planting, landscaping, any creative like seating areas that we might want to do. And that's, again, just a budget number to capture something in the cost estimate right now.
What was your landscaping number?
100,000.
Will that include the wide walkway, the trees sort of in the middle? Maybe.
Maybe. I think we'd have to design to that number. We haven't picked that number up for what we've, you know what I mean?
Yep.
Off what we've designed. It's just kind of, let's throw a placeholder in there for
Okay.
now. And then we throw on a contractor, bonds, insurance, overhead, profit, project management that they're gonna charge on top of everything anyhow at 10% of the subtotal.
You're at another 300 grand.
It's another 300 and, yeah, plus mobilization, demobilization, all that good stuff that they do for. So it's another 348,000. That might be a little conservative, but it's a good starting point.
3.4, 3.5.
So we're at 3.5-ish subtotal. I got 3.58 million for a subtotal. And then you always want to go into these projects with contingency in case anything goes wrong. We recommend that you go in with approximately 10% contingency, hoping that you can use some of that for nice things, but you can't go in with no contingency because something will pop up in a construction project, guaranteed. So add on that at 10% and you're at 3.9.
All right. You have the number there if we were to pull off synthetic and use natural, what the delta would be.
I don't, but it would be minus the 300,000 for the alternative infill, and then minus another 300 to 400 to go from synthetic to natural. An irrigated, under-drained, natural turf field is going to cost you $600,000 as opposed to a $900,000 synthetic turf field upfront. Everyone needs to understand that cuts your usage in half by about a factor of 3. But upfront costs, you'd save $600,000 probably, in that ballpark. You need to obviously limit what you do on that field.
Absolutely.
Option 2, and we have some ideas, because I know what the budget is, what you guys have told me, and it's not $4 million. So we have some ideas, but let me just get through option 2 and 3, and then we'll talk
That's
about
good, yeah.
those ideas.
It's like all those shows my wife watched on HGTV. They always bring them to the really, really nice house. Okay, you can't afford this, but
Fix her up.
it's got everything you want.
Exactly.
That's it.
I don't think I need to go through every line, because it's very much the same. And it's the option 2 is basically the exact same number as option 1. We're just moving things around. It's the same scope. Option, yeah, we took a couple parking spaces off. But
But for argument's sake, it's the same number.
yeah, it's the same number.
3.58, add the contingency, we're at 3.9.
Yeah. And then option 3 is a little different because there's new lights. So option 3, basically add in the cost of the new lights at about $320,000, and you're at, with contingency, $4.3 million.
Okay.
So,
So,
we can go through our ideas of how we can maybe save some money, and then let's. I think we need to talk about what we really need.
absolutely. And
To do, and what Sal to kind of talk about programming the building and how that's all going to work, and we can talk about what we really need for a building and how we might be able to phase some things to do them, how we can maybe build a building and site it so we can maybe add on later, things like this. But initially, so we had, we made some assumptions off the bat, and we went back and checked these, and some of our assumptions, we said, okay, we threw in $300,000 for alternate infill, because we don't know if it's going to be organic, we don't know if it's going to be TPE, EnviroFill, we don't know what it's going to be, but that's kind of right in the middle. If you do an organic alternate infill, that's typically been on the lower range of the options, in the more of the $200,000 range, as opposed to the EnviroFills like $250 to $280. We're seeing TPE come in around $300 to $350, sometimes $400.
so if we were to go natural,
If you want to go with an organic
no, if we're
infill.
gonna go natural, if we're gonna go grass,
Yep.
it's $600,000 delta. If we go with TPE,
You wouldn't need any infill.
I know that, but if we're talking these numbers, the
Okay, the delta.
3.9 million, the delta you stated was synthetic versus grass, a $600,000
Mhm.
delta. And what's the assumption there, that we're using which infill?
I said $300,000. We don't know what infill.
Okay.
Probably.
Okay, so one of the alternatives that's not chrome rubber
Yep.
and meets all of our standards as far as lead.
Yep.
Okay, toxins, okay. All right,
But we could make a cheaper assumption. I guess we could figure out what that actually is, and we could use one of the lower cost, like just inorganic just happens to cost less than TPE by $100,000 to $200,000. So if we want to,
But we don't know what we get out of the organic, right?
it's kind of unknown.
the organic's a little bit unknown. I mean, it's an organic substance, so it's bound to break down at some point. We've done a couple at this point. They're newer. They're all newer at this point. I think the oldest one in the country is probably 5 years old, 6 years old at this point. The oldest one in New England is probably 2 years old at this point. So we don't really know how it's going to last in the long term.
Lawrence put what, the cork down, Michael?
Yeah, corcoran.
And they're replacing it?
Lawrence Academy.
Yeah.
One, isn't it like 80% sand?
There's one that's, well, they mix it with sand.
Yeah.
With all of these, they mix it with sand.
Right.
It's 50-50 sand and something else.
I thought I remembered the EPDM was the cheapest.
EPDM, we found
that
that
the
it's
cheaper
actually
one?
more expensive
It is, okay.
than the organic.
Right, I may have remembered
Um,
wrong from the field turf presentation.
And Field Turf has 10 options that
Yeah.
they have a coated chrome rubber. A lot of people say, well, it's still chrome rubber. There's something out there called Nike grind, but it's really hard to get. limited supply. AstroTurf apparently kind of controls that, and AstroTurf just got bought by someone else, so it's a whole, kind of convoluted thing right now. It looks like confetti, so a lot of people don't like the way it looks. We just did an organic field in Tantascwa Regional High School. There's been a few others around. People seem to really like them starting out. I couldn't tell you for sure how they're gonna.
It hasn't been enough time.
Exactly.
John,
But
can I
the
grab-
warranty period is lower too. I thought I remembered that.
Warranty period
And
shorter.
we don't need to
Yeah,
make this decision.
that's what I thought I remembered.
Oh, absolutely,
Yeah.
we're not
But
gonna make this decision right
These
now.
are just
Notes.
going through the cost estimate, what our assumptions were, and how we could try to whittle this down a little bit.
I'm gonna go back on my word to wait till the end. Eric, you had your hand up?
Yeah, Erica Facorni, Fox Lane. With the organics, do you need to put in an irrigation system? I thought at one of the meetings, he said that because it floats or
It
whatever.
dries up
that-
and it'll
yeah,
doesn't blow away.
You don't need to. Some people do, but what we've been told by a lot of the turf reps and the contractors and the people who've done these things and the athletic directors and the people who've used them is that some of them have the irrigation system built in because they thought they'd want to do it and they never do. So it's a nice thing to have in case you want to use that, but a lot of people just don't do it.
Thank
Some people do. Some people
Yeah.
do water it.
you.
I'll just go down the list here. We did assume a new scoreboard. The scoreboard you have right now actually looks decent, pretty nice. We could probably reuse that, at least the panel. We'd have to do a new foundation, new I-beams, new electrical connection. But we'd be able to save probably $15,000 from our budget if we just moved it.
Definitely have to be moved.
Yeah, yep. I think so.
What does a new scoreboard, what's that line item?
25,000. It'd probably cost about 10 to move it. We can look at, it's here on the plan. We're encroaching on it by about 10 feet with the back of the end zone.
Oh, so I see, because you've shifted everything.
The parking, parallel parking borrowed from the road.
Right, so that all shifted, yep.
Yeah, we shifted everything, and we're assuming that this, something that probably important that I didn't mention before, we're assuming that the parallel parking along this road goes away, and we're just using it as throughway access now, because
Okay.
we've taken that side of the roadway to use for the field, and then a new walkway to come through there.
Okay. I would say if we were going to do that and the rectangular field was going to be where it is there, we'd probably have to widen that road out over that sidewalk that's there right now towards Wickham Field and retain as much of that parking as possible. We're trying to, I understand we pick up parking down here, but when we have any event at the school, pick up, drop off, that whole area gets queued up.
There's
quite a
room to
bit.
do that on that side,
There's a ton of room over there. You
Yeah.
can go almost all the way to that back.
so it's
Just
adding the money back in.
It's money, yeah. I mean, it's,
Yeah, this scheme actually, because this is the one where, this is option 3, where we've shifted everything up this way to get the bleachers in here.
yeah.
And we could relook at this parking too. I mean, we would take out this angled parking, it's just what's left here, and
Rows.
that way everyone can shift back. I don't know if we still get the existing lights. Maybe we do get the existing lights in there in that scenario. We lose a bunch of parking, but we also have taken a little bit of this portion of
Sidewalk.
the drop off here. It's even coming into the roadway a little bit, so we have to kind of.
Reconfigure that.
Right now, it's a little bit softer than it would be proposed. It's still a nice wide radius. It's still a good turning movement, but we have to reconfigure that a little bit to get that to work.
Yeah, we can fine tooth that a little bit, but that,
What we wanted to do was, first thing was maximize the parking and make this kind of work a little bit better. So we can relook at that probably.
okay.
We did estimate
Yeah.
for new dugouts. We could do with like roof structures on them or enclosed or cantilevered, we could do, you know, just concrete or asphalt pads with benches, players' benches on them. And save,
Similar to what we have now.
yeah,
We actually don't even have a fence behind the
and you'd save probably
benches now.
40 grand by doing that. 30 to 40 grand.
You'd still have them, they'd just be nice.
Huge, they just wouldn't be covered.
Oh, uncovered, okay.
Just like they are now.
Yeah.
Save $40,000.
30 to 40, depending on what you do. I mean, if it's the enclosed one with like a storage component to it,
Yeah.
it's a little more expensive. If you do just like a cantilever roof structure, those are about 15,000 for the actual structure a piece installed. So you'd save between 30 and 40 grand. So another thing, thinking about, all right, what do we really need? If we're doing new bleachers, we need new restrooms. We have concessions that we could, you know, it'd be great to have concessions. I know you have concessions now, but like literally, what do you need? You need restrooms. So we could do just restrooms, not concessions. Figure that out later, do it modular, keep what you have and move that somehow. And if we cut that, you know, we cut that down, that $542,000 number might.
What if we did a pad with rough plumbing or rough utilities, stubbed it? I mean, just,
For concessions later.
Yeah.
Or, again, this is something that we're gonna talk about, how do you phase that, if you wanna phase that in later.
What is the real building program?
Yeah, exactly.
yeah.
You
It could just be restrooms and concessions and not have any storage or team rooms, you know, and those are things that don't have plumbing and are dry and could be done as a modular building easily later, or as just a roof shelter.
Yeah.
We probably could get the building down, and we'll get to this, but about 1,000 square feet with the required restrooms and concessions, which would get the building down to about a $350,000 building.
Yeah. So you'd be based on what my estimate was, you'd be saving 200, call it 200,000.
So go from 1,500.
To a target of around 1,000, which is about the smallest you could do for concessions and the required restrooms.
What are you assuming for required restrooms?
We're using the capacity of 818 spectators, and then assuming getting a 50% waiver
Yep.
by the code
Okay.
from Massachusetts Plumbing Board, and that yields 7 water closets for women and 2 water closets and 2 urinals for men.
Okay. Would doing like a gender neutral affect
We
that
could,
at all?
it just adds to,
It does.
it'll add to the area, because those could be, but that's one of the questions on.
Like, would that
the
count? Could
program.
we,
It
do
counts
like
toward the-
6 water closets for women and then 1 family gender neutral? Or would that be an added cost? Because I know that was just something that was important.
It could be done. It's, the amount of difference in the price is not gonna
It's not
make a
gonna
huge
be-
difference.
okay.
As long
Okay,
as we
so we're
keep
not
the
assuming
plumbing
30
contiguous. I mean,
bathrooms.
the real goal
Yep.
is to try and get the plumbing chases all back to back, so that we're as efficient as we are with the plumbing. We would just make the plan work to make that work.
That would just eat up space in the building, right?
Right, it just makes the concession a little smaller, you know, it's just a trade-off that we have to work through when we
Sure.
really design it.
So Sal, what would the square footage be for each of those, if we got the waivers? For 7 women's and,
About 315 square feet for a women's restroom with 7 fixtures, and about 250 square feet for a men's. And to get them as small as possible, we typically, instead of having a vision lock, like you typically, would see, we would do a screen wall outside the door. So that would be just a fence to provide that vision lock, so the building gets smaller and you're buying a fence, because you add about 100 square feet just to get a real vision lock
Right.
to work, so.
okay. Very good.
What's a vision lock?
It's
You can't see in.
So.
Oh, just literally-
With the door is, there's a kind of a little vestibule in the bathroom,
Oh, I
so you
see
don't
what
look
you're
in
saying.
and have a sight line to the mirror that
Got
then
it.
looks into the.
Okay, thank you.
And then we had the landscape budget of $100,000, maybe that's not, maybe that's 50, maybe there's a little more pavement in there, a little more concrete.
Yeah, I mean, those are certainly things that we could
We don't know
potentially
what-
do with some community donations and,
Yep.
you know, so.
We've done it before where it's like, hey, here's an open area, we'll put it down as like loam net for now, and then the town can put landscaping in there later on, something like that. Again, that was a budget number for now, so we
No,
can
it's-
figure out what that is.
I'd
but
rather you
it's-
put it in.
It's at least something to, talk about. And, just another caveat, like I said, we haven't designed anything yet, we haven't done quantity, so there could be something in here that we're missing. I don't think there's any big numbers that we're missing, but we certainly haven't figured out, like, how much sewer we need. Do we need a pump station? Do we need, things like this. So we haven't gotten that far yet, but I think, again, we're in the ballpark for making decisions here. And then another thing we thought about, kind of a big ticket number, is the parking. And, all this new parking is currently pavement. It's not good pavement by any stretch of the imagination, but it's
Very polite of
paved,
you, John.
parkable. Maybe in the interim, you just seal coat it and restripe it. You could stripe these movements and all these little islands here, you could stripe it. You could just paint stripe this
Yeah,
and get the flow to work.
it's a lot better for the people that have to plow it too.
How much does that save?
I think you'd save,
457,000 was what you had for parking on the first two.
yeah, it's site walks and it was a number in there. I think you'd probably save, based on what our estimate was, 400,000, probably.
Well, wasn't that parking lot slated as a project coming up anyways? Is there
No, it's
some?
down
like-
by, well, it's always been on the
South.
capital request.
Oh yeah, the life in this pavement is basically done. You
Okay.
you
I
really
just thought
wouldn't
it
seal
was-
coat this pavement. You really need to redo this parking lot.
I just thought it was coming
But-
up, so
No, so we
perhaps
paved-
there's
we
like a
paved everything
collaboration
from the
that could
circle.
happen, that's all.
From the circle down to the track,
Yep.
has been paved.
Yep.
We've talked about, since, I think my first year on school committee, 6
Yeah.
years ago, doing this whole parking area and actually going out into Whitcomb Field and reconstructing the whole, the money's wasn't there and hasn't been there, and-
Sure,
But
which
is
was
it-
why we were trying to incorporate it into this.
okay, right.
You could even design it and bid it as an alternate. And if for some reason the numbers come in a lot lower, as a contractor is really hungry, maybe you can award that. That's a big number in there, but, and there are other alternates that we can talk about as well, probably. But that was the big thing that we saw, that was, again, what do we
Big
really
nut.
need right
Yep,
now
yep.
to get this project?
John, can I grab a question? Go ahead, Erica.
I'm just wondering if that could be incorporated into the whole, like, complete streets stuff that we're doing, and is that really part of a field thing, or can it be part of a town?
So I think that's a great question, and it has been on the list for, like I said, 6 years ago when I got onto school committee. That was something that we were working on trying to do, and just got pushed down the capital list. I don't know if complete streets is something that we could incorporate that into, just because it's not a public way. But there may be another way to do it. Because this is really a facility renovation, not just the rectangular field, we wanted to try to incorporate as much as we could. And frankly, one of the reasons I ran for school committee was because when Russell Street was being renovated, town meeting voted to approve $16.2 million. We used less than $12 million, and then we ended up going back after the fact and doing stuff to the gym, building a new track. We just paved part of the parking lot. My opinion then was, why don't we just do it all? But the then superintendent wanted to get it done as quickly as possible, and it would have just slowed things down, and it would have been, we would have everything done at this point, and the taxpayers already voted to approve $16 million. Now, the good news is that we didn't spend $16 million, which has allowed us to do some other stuff with those funds through undesignated fund balances and whatnot. But I just thought that this might be an opportunity for us, when we're going after one thing, try to look at what else around it needs to be done, which is what we didn't do when we renovated Russell Street. So that's why this is part of the project, and it may very well end up coming out, to John's point, it's a big nut to eliminate from the whole project, and I think you're probably right that we could incorporate this into something else. All right.
So I guess at this point, going forward, we owe you a deliverable on October 26th, about 30 days from now. And we really kind of need to be done with everything in probably about 3 weeks from now, so we can kind of wrap it all up and do our final cost estimates. So we'd like to get some direction, I guess,
Yeah.
what do you guys like, what do you not like, what do you think you really need, how can we try to nail down what the plan's gonna be based on this? And I know Sal wants to kind of do the same thing with the building as well. So the question I have for anyone is, what option really stood out? Where can we start from? Option one, with the building area here. Option,
So option one does not, or does, that shifts the field down towards the baseball field, correct? So all of these options cut into that roadway?
yeah,
Yeah.
yep.
To fit softball, basically.
To fit
Basically, to
softball.
fit softball in there, yeah. I mean, it looks like we could, we might be able to squeeze that back this way a little bit, pull that back. But even the walkway we're showing through here now is a little narrow for me. We could look at that. If that's an issue, we could look at that. Again, not fully considering the utility bank that comes through here when we did the schematic.
Yeah.
I haven't looked at that in great detail yet. We gotta see what that means for where this building is. And again, it's a fairly far walk from this parking area here.
Yeah.
So,
I was gonna say, just to kick it off, option one is my least favorite because of the distance that elderly, handicapped children really have to walk. To me, that is the least favorable, just because of that one piece of it. Because if you take the lighting out of the mix, they're all the same cost, really, without putting the lighting aside. They're all the same cost. But that, to me, is a big con, I guess,
Option one.
to start. Just my opinion.
Second that opinion?
I actually like option 3.
Yeah,
I have
I
a
do
question
too.
about, do you have to shift the field up so much if we get rid of some of that? Like we said, maybe we not mess with the parking. Would the field have to be shifted up? Do you know what I mean? Like you put the
Yeah.
bleachers there.
We can look at that. The existing fence line is right here. So we're actually cutting into that with the parking a little bit in this scheme, so if we kept that fence line basically, sidewalks here, so we kept that, we could have that come back a little bit. It limits what you can do in the future for the
Right.
parking lot. If you actually wanted to do this scheme in the future, you wouldn't be able to.
But would the field still have to be shifted and the lights be changed?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't think we get that much out of not doing the parking lot.
Right.
Well, the other thing that we did too in this, in all of these plans, which is taking up a little more width or adding to the width, is we kicked out. See how we kicked out the field like this? We kind of chamfered it here and added about another 10 feet more than what you really need in this area. And we did that to give it. If you can do it, it's nice to give the teams a little more standing room here. And then one thing that we've heard from input is that we want to have more room maybe than typical for the cheerleaders. So that provides a lot more opportunity to have room for gathering space, cheerleaders, whether it's along here. Even if you have to just take a couple of goals and throw them onto the sidelines to get them out of the way, they're even further away from the field of play. So it's nice if you can do it. Most fields don't have this, and most fields have the bleachers right up to that end line there. So we could shift that another 10 feet this way. and then kind of see how it all plays out, and we might be able to shift that down. You know, it's about 30 feet we gotta make up to be able to keep that light over there, so
Right.
I don't know that we quite get there.
But then I have another question on the walkway in between the softball field and
Here?
right there. Is that all paved?
Yeah. Yep, in this option, it's paved, and then we added modular. You could probably put a modular, like grandstand unit in there, 4 or 5 rows deep, to get, 80 to 100 people to have a place to sit and watch softball. So that's about, I think, it's a 16-foot wide walkway there.
So that walkway, well, I guess 2 questions. I think that's a nice opportunity for just gathering, and it could be really cool down the road with benches and trees.
Mm-hmm.
But if that could be something that the community could provide, a family donates a tree, a school donates a bench or whatever, like down the road, and just we could have the infrastructure for that you said could save, I don't know, I guess I don't really know, but.
Whatever the landscaping budget
Yeah.
is, yeah, exactly. If you could have those trees and those components ready to go, but donated later, to save some money.
You know the people that worked at the Castle with trees down there.
That's what I was thinking, yeah. Like,
They did a great job.
yeah.
Any comments on option 2?
That's option 2. Yeah, I'll leave that up.
Again, option 2 is a little tricky because of where the building might go relative to the bleachers.
Yeah, that would be my, I don't like how far that is.
Yeah, I
have to
like option
Walk
3
my little
for
kids
me.
over to the bathroom over there. It
Yeah.
takes me like a
Not
half
gonna be
an
little
hour.
forever, Mike.
And if
But
this is,
I'm not thinking about myself, I'm thinking
Oh,
about the
all
other
right.
people.
if this is, I'm envisioning that this is now the main parking area for this field.
Yeah.
Still some parking at the middle school probably, but this is, if you're coming here, you're gonna park here. It'd be nice to have the parking closer to your
Right.
grandstands as well, which option 3 does.
But again.
Parking,
so-
grandstands, building, entrance, and then this keeps that utility corridor nice and clear, and it also would you could just keep this walkway, wouldn't have to touch it.
And the recess
I
area.
still think
too.
option 2 is the best one, if you could skinny that concessions up by the bleachers where they're at, right
Yeah.
there.
Like, we
Just
don't
put the
really need that
concession in there.
expanded eating and sitting area? I don't
Yeah.
think that's.
No, that's our landscape architect who has big dreams.
He's got fountains out there.
And that could be the concession building in that
You
area.
could still have your,
Right,
you could-
that's what I'm thinking.
if you're gonna put
Yeah.
if your main parking for this field's gonna be there now, you could move the concessions, you could still get your extra corner spots like you had planned. And then you move your concessions and skinny it out the long way to sit almost right next to the bleachers up. A little,
Here.
well, it'd be pushed back a
Even
little, I
where the
guess.
seating area is.
Put it up here or something.
Yes. Yep,
You're basically shifting it, just
moving it back.
moving it back a
To the
little bit.
fence.
You could still have your entrance.
Still have
On
your
the
entrance
corner?
here, on the corner. You could still put those corner parking spots you had in option 1 there, I think.
So just have a small ticket booth
Yeah.
and gateway
Well,
there.
yeah, have
Right.
a entrance there. Eliminate the other, to be honest with you, I was just down there tonight and I just noticed how dark it was. And like the kids crossing right there, it's really dark, so we'd have to, obviously, you're gonna brighten that up for that. There's a ton of lighting, I mean, not in the field over there, per se, the back softball field, but it's brighter over there because of the field lights.
Well, it's, with any building, there's gonna be lighting on the building, there's gonna be decorative
Well, you wouldn't have a
lighting, there's
building. Well, I mean, I guess you'd have a
So-
small little
So,
ticket booth. but-
let me throw this out at you, just real quick. We could have like a small building / ticket booth.
Here, you could just do a
Here.
ticket booth.
Right. And then do concessions and restrooms closer to Russell Street even. So you're getting away from even where we are now, do it on the Russell Street side. That way you got the
Like-
benefit of all the sports can use track, Whitcomb Field, softball field, and the multi-use field can all use.
You mean where the cheerleading warm-up is, where it
No.
says there?
No, over there, yeah.
Over here, right?
Right there, yeah.
Like,
Thought we were worried about
Oh,
the
yeah.
plumbing going that far.
I mean, it is what it is. If we're building multiple buildings or we're moving, I mean, we can't put the concession up where it's drawn here, right?
Lose that field jut out to gain a little space, or is that necessary?
You could lose it, and I mean, how concerned are you with the swing set area too?
Well, that's why
Yeah.
I was saying, don't, option 3, you break it into a lot of that swing set area in the.
I think you could, in the grand scheme of things, I think rebuilding that swing set area is probably,
Least
you
expensive.
could make that work. You know what I mean? You can make those numbers work. You can even take what's there and move it. There's room there to probably do something.
So one of the edicts that we got very early on was don't touch the playground. So,
Yeah.
I know Judith had her hand up, Jim had his hand up, but Eric, you had your hand up first, and we just,
Well, I was just confused at first about what Mike was saying. So you're not talking about having 2 separate buildings, you're just having a ticket booth and then
Concessions over
Okay.
there, yeah.
with restrooms.
Gotcha.
Some people don't even do a ticket booth anymore. They'll do just a gate.
Well, we have
Set
a,
up
we have a
table.
ticket booth that we could just,
I mean, that's a shed that we got
Yeah.
placed
Pick it up
there.
and move it.
Yeah.
just put a slab down.
Yeah,
That certainly could be done. We could make that area pretty.
right.
Yeah.
I'd say 85% of the time we don't do ticket booths because people say we don't even need them. We're just going to set up a table as
Yeah,
long as we have a
that's-
gate that we could open and just do it that way.
Make it look like the entrance.
You could do something nice with some
with
columns
a
there.
queue area that would cut into it, just so you don't have people standing in the parking lot. All right, Eric, you got clarification? You got yours answered? All right, Jim.
I was just gonna say, on the right side, if you're thinking about the thing, the water line goes down that utility car, so you have access to water.
Yeah, I think that's water here. Water, gas, and electric, right? It's
Yeah.
everything back
Everything's
there.
there, yeah, including fiber optics.
Yeah, and then on the side by the Whitcomb Field, that's where the gravity sewer line goes, on that side.
Coming from the school, so we could tie in there.
That pump station's over here somewhere, right?
No, the
Pump station's over here by the middle
where
school
bus
corner, yeah.
That's right, that's right.
But we could tie in
There's
there,
gravity
right?
here.
That's gravity, yes.
Does that come down to the pump station?
Yes. It's deep when you get over to the pump station. It's probably 4 to 6 feet deep in there.
Yeah.
So you could
Plop right down that
drop,
end.
well, no, you'd have to be,
I
you'd have to be
mean,
super high.
if it was 6 feet deep here, we could make it work. If it was
Right.
4
Yeah.
feet,
Put the small pump chambers like we did at the police, I mean, at the.
Yeah, I know, but I'm just saying, you said you're real deep down by the pump station,
Yeah.
right? So that's easy.
well, if it's over here though, if we're gonna do the building over here.
Oh.
We could
But
tie
I
in
mean,
to
as long as
everything
we've
like
got,
that.
you know, as long as it's, well, I mean, we can check it out.
No, that's what we
It's
have.
5 or 6 feet.
I don't like it over there because everything's right there, the softball
Well,
field.
that's the point, though, we're putting everything right there. So let's use some real estate over there.
But if it's over there, then the track can use it, you know, it's sort of
More
centrally located for,
It's just a thought, that's what we're here for, is discuss this. Eric.
I like the thought of having it available to track and the other sports. Is there gonna be, would there be a
Access?
gate there, or is it gonna be open at other times?
That's certainly, we can make those
I
arrangements.
think
That's the easy part.
Yeah, if you did it there, you could do a gate and just lock it for games here and force people to come through.
Right,
But you could have a nice wide gate that you leave it open the rest
for
of the
track
time.
meets and
Yeah.
baseball games and what have you. And I mean, the bathroom's not gonna be open all the time. It's not, it'd just be open for events that were scheduled, that were sanctioned by whoever the responsible party is that would have control. Jackie, do you have a question?
I don't.
You want to know why I don't like it down that end either? Because during football games, the home team goes in that corner, and believe me, that's not what we want concession stands. We want it on the other end. But
That's a decent reason.
the AD can speak to that, but I'm pretty sure he'd probably want concession stands away from it.
Doing a building here might be tricky for actual, during construction. If it's over here, you have more room, you have a lot of staging if you have contractors over here, they're gonna be taking up this area, they're gonna be, and I don't have a dog in the fight either way, just, it's a little tighter, and you're gonna have two different contracts, you're gonna have a
Building
general
guy.
contractor for the field, you have a building contractor, and they're gonna have to live together for about.
So I would make the recommendation that any construction trails, everything we put on, we'd actually open the gates to Whitcomb Field, kind of like Mr. Knox has done the circus in the past, and we've brought the circus in through the gates, which are, if you come down your one-way traffic, there's a gate that enters the baseball field at
Over
the end
here?
of that. No, straight ahead. Goes straight ahead onto the ball field, yep. So we could kind of allow that to be a work area.
The only thing I would caution on that, and I'm sure you can say, if it does get wet around here, that is gonna be
Yeah.
underwater.
Mhm.
Oh, we're gonna kill the
It's
grass
gotten wet this
field.
year.
Well,
Well, still.
Is it gonna compress the grass field too?
Like,
Like, isn't that?
no,
No.
it's, no.
You're gonna have,
I mean, the circus came on there with all their old dog and pony show, and now.
For 6 months?
Yeah, they weren't on there for 6 months.
you're gonna have staging and block and, materials, they're gonna need space
Yeah.
within the building. And they're not gonna have a lot over here. Yeah.
Okay.
Google. But, Hmm?
And it's right by.
yeah, it's right by the playground. Yeah, so,
Well, again, it's not gonna be open 24/7. It's not gonna be open for the playground. It's going to be open when there is something going on at one of these venues where it's been.
no, I'm
No,
talking about during
Construction
construction.
wise, construction, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Yeah. So, we get, so,
What happens when you get involved with the sidebar?
And I don't know, it doesn't seem like that far of a walk for track to just go on the other side. It seems like this is a big
Yeah, they try,
lot
right?
to
They
do
run.
for just.
They're awesome
Yeah,
shape.
there's inches.
If you put it on
yeah, you can leave that
They
open
can
to a
even
pathway.
run.
You have an open
Yeah.
pathway in the bleachers.
Yeah,
Yeah, you
Instead
could
of doing
have,
the
you could have a
mile.
gate over here, or just leave that, have a gate here and have them come through.
the
It
concept
seems,
of it is still nice because the track's over there and you're kind of entering into this zone that's,
that would
kinda
be
open.
central to the campus,
Right.
athletic
Right.
campus.
As of right now, they have to go all the way to the porta.
I'm just saying, like,
Mhm.
up, the north is great because of that vicinity, but whether it's on one side or the other, the bleachers, I don't think it's a huge deal. Just my opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So-
I guess my opinion is we minimize impact
Yeah,
to the
right.
playground as well.
Yeah,
You know,
Right.
We're gonna
just an idea.
stick it all in there.
That's why we're here, right?
Yeah.
So I would, are we all kind of leaning towards doing a dual-purpose building, kind of where the sheds are now? But with an entrance over where the gate of the ambulatory gate is now?
Yeah.
And that gate would, I mean, would we just put an ambulance gate down the end of the field, or?
We'll figure that, yeah, we can do gates, we'll figure it out.
So do people's opinions change on that if we eliminate parking? If we take that out of the scope of the project, we don't have the nice parking lot like we have now. Everyone still parks probably at the middle school like now. Just asking if you're.
So we can open that gate up again and just park out in the field. What do you
No.
think, Jim?
I would still would like to hold that the way we just talked about doing it, and make sure that if we're not gonna encompass that parking, that we do it. I mean, the town does it, I don't know why we
Yeah, we're
would
gonna need some.
do it.
You can
So-
plan for it, you don't have to
It's-
build it now, you might wanna plan for it.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
If you like it, if you like this scheme, there's no need to not, just to not plan for it. Maybe do it 2 years from now, maybe, like I said, you can just stripe it that way for now, or
Right.
Right.
something. So, all right, are we gearing towards option 2 with the grandstands
I think a
here?
hybrid too,
Trying to save the lights?
yes.
Yeah.
Foundations for lights,
The
depending on
foundations for
how good
everything.
Musco can make the existing poles work, kind of evaluate that as a,
Yeah, probably, because, yeah.
I'm sorry, say it again?
The potential to put foundations for lights for an upgrade
future.
down the road.
Yeah. Yeah, we don't want
What-
20-foot holes
what is the
next to
ticket
our
for new
drainage
lighting,
in our
John?
fields. We
Say
really
again?
don't.
What is the nut for lighting?
For new lighting, 320, it's like 80 grand a pole installed, so 320.
With the banks?
Yeah, it's
That's the
all.
short money?
with what, electric? Is what you're saying?
80 grand is all in, so you flip the switch and those things are on.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, depending on what you need to do for getting electric to them, but that's about, it's a good number to use.
Is that the foundation work too, or is that
Yeah.
just the pole? That's the
Yeah,
okay,
foundation,
so
pole, fixtures.
So if we do the foundation, I mean, I'm sure light prices will change, and I'm not asking you to project that, but like, do you have an estimated savings, for the
If you
future?
do the
Poles now, or do the foundations now versus later, and then obviously, damage to the
Have you
field.
used about a third to do
It's
the,
about a third, yeah. It's about a third for the foundations. The poles are fairly cheap, and then the big number is usually the actual fixtures themselves.
Okay.
Just
The real question would be how good can the lighting coverage be with the poles where they are? And then evaluate whether it's worth spending the money on the foundations, depending on how good those existing
Yeah.
poles
Right.
can.
The other thing to make sure everyone's aware of is that the foundations for the Musco poles stick out of the ground about 7 feet. Because it's a sleeved system. So in the meantime, if you have those foundations in there, you're gonna have 4 concrete foundations sticking out of the ground. We could plant around them and do something, but they're gonna be there, and you're gonna see them.
so if we just opted for the 1/3 this time, we did the 30 grand to put 4 poles in, we're gonna have
Literally
big planters.
Right.
All cleared.
We'll have technology have changed more by the time we get around to
Yeah, it's
doing it.
always a
Right.
possibility.
I mean, well, they just came out with LEDs like a year ago.
Right.
For field lighting,
Yeah, so maybe the price will come down
yeah.
in the next couple of years.
When you went through the cost, you said football goals, soccer goals, and that was
Yep.
part of the cap. What does that mean? Like, I know the football poles, what when you
So
mean
the
by
football,
soccer
like
goals?
uprights,
Yep.
and then we usually include soccer goals. Just a lot of people have old soccer goals. They want new ones. We were there tonight. It looks like the ones that are on the field right now are actually in pretty good shape. They have wheels on them. So we could probably get that.
But you would
Pro
have to
cost that
estimate
out.
field hockey goals as well.
We have field hockey goals in there as
Yeah.
well. Yeah.
Well, only 'cause the ones, I don't think the ones up at the high school have wheels.
I don't think so either.
We could probably get rid of the soccer goals.
Just kidding.
You coming over here because I wasn't seeing you raise your hand?
No, I'm coming over here to turn on the TV.
We had a PA system in there as well, and as we were driving away, we heard them announcing the players coming out, so I assume there is a PA system out there that could be reused. I don't know how.
PA system?
PA
Not so much.
Is it-
We need a PA system.
Okay.
Whether or not that comes through the project, or, we need a PA system.
Yeah.
So the PA system would work for softball too, correct?
Not as budgeted. We put a line item in there for a PA system to go in. Usually you have like a mixer going in your press box, and then you have a couple of speakers mounted on somewhere, either on the bleachers, on the press box. If you're doing new lighting poles, they can design them to accept the speakers. In this case, you probably can't. Or we could put new poles and new pole-mounted speakers somewhere. But we didn't, in the budget, plan for them to have a new PA system for the softball field. We could have that in.
What's a scoreboard for the softball field cost?
What we have budgeted for. It's about 20 grand, 25 grand.
Pull it.
Isn't there still a little one there?
There is, doesn't work.
Oh,
Hasn't
all
worked
right.
since now.
Since
Probably. Did that work when you coached, Joe?
That dates back to when I was coaching and it worked for like 3 or 4 years and then.
And then that's it. Yeah.
So we get rid of that, right?
Yeah.
With softball,
What can we
I
give a
just
scrap
wonder
on that?
if you do something
What can we
down
give a
the
scrap
road
on that?
for for some of those things.
Yeah, I think
Like-
softball, this space here, that you could do a scoreboard out here.
It'd be nice to at least
So, I
plan
mean,
for
our,
it.
our varsity
Where's the
softball and
kids'
baseball fields don't have
scoreboard?
scoreboards now. The two teams keep the book and,
Because people like you were cheap when you did that.
okay. I'll take that criticism.
What's your name? You didn't state your name? No.
Thank you,
You'll put
Sheila.
it right down.
So we're option 2 as the basis with the
Concessions slipping back onto the property.
building here, more of just a entrance area here.
Right. Turnstiles. Mark?
Mark Rambacher, 205 Hartwell. I think you're going to get into problems when you eliminated the parallel parking along there because it's used a lot, and I think you need to consider incorporating parking back there. You might be better off rather than having the 2 rows down on the one side, taking and putting rows where they can park straight in along the Whitcomb field.
Yeah, that's actually, Mike mentioned that. I didn't,
Put parking straight in over there, yes.
Yeah.
head-on or angled parking in there.
You'd be better off doing straight in, otherwise you're gonna have to go around Russell Street to get back out. Right. You can,
Does that drop down there a little bit, grade?
A little bit.
Very little.
Yeah, just a little bit.
Not much.
But, I mean,
and my other question is, does this rebuild the sidewalks?
just raise your hand again, I'm sorry. No.
The sidewalk along there's
Yeah.
very limited sidewalk along,
Yeah, the sidewalk that comes at least around, like through here.
yeah,
is-
there's no sidewalk on the other side though.
Through here, there's no sidewalk here, right?
There's
Oh,
no
yeah, there
sidewalk
is.
through there.
Other side of the road.
No, there's no sidewalk by the softball field now.
Right here.
On the other side of the road.
On the softball field side.
On the softball field side.
Yeah,
Not the school
there's no,
side.
but it is on the
school
school
It's just,
side.
it's just an embankment.
It's across the crosswalk.
It's it's behind the parking.
Here, right?
Right. It's it's
Yeah.
up against the building.
So if we're driving,
So we want
driving
you-
traffic to, there is a gate right where it says band, is that what, the benches, is that what it says? Down under the trees, keep coming down. Does that say benches?
Benches.
So there's a gate right there to get into the field, it's never used. But
We would need a new sidewalk. I mean, because you're coming through here from the middle school, you would need a new sidewalk to get to the entrance area here.
Well,
That's gonna be tough.
that is gonna be tough, that's a
Yeah.
There's a
3-foot grade?
Why wouldn't we just use the
3-foot grid?
There's a sidewalk already on the other side.
sidewalk that's there,
Sidewalk
just
there,
cross the
and just do a
crosswalk?
crosswalk,
Right there.
Yeah.
There's a crosswalk there.
yeah. Outside the cafeteria, right?
Yeah.
Where's the sidewalk now? It comes up
Sidewalk.
here?
Right behind the parking
No,
lot.
no.
It's right
right
up against
there.
the building.
Right up against the building?
No,
Right up
no.
against the parking lot.
Yeah,
against the
like-
parking spaces.
Right.
Yeah,
Okay, so it's here.
It's,
Yeah.
yeah,
it's right there.
Follows it in, goes
Then
there, stops right
crosswalk.
there. Yep,
All right, so we're not gonna, all right.
you're good.
So sidewalk from here over. Got it. Right, okay.
I mean, maybe we bring that down a little further to kind of feed more towards that gated area, but across the street, there's nothing, right, on the drawing there, on the plan? On the field
Should pick
side?
up right on the other side of the corner.
There's no sidewalk there, Michael.
Yes, there is.
Yes, there is.
Oh, there
Yeah,
is,
there
yeah,
is.
it just rolls right into the.
Yeah.
Right.
It's not a
Rock and
right
glass.
usable sidewalk.
Well, we'll check it out. We might want, because this sidewalk
Might
is
wanna
not
come this
usable.
way.
No.
No.
This
not
one's,
at all.
we'd probably redo it from that crosswalk.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you have to.
And redo this one as well.
Right.
Yeah.
All right.
Oh.
We want to talk about the building, what we really need to have in the building.
I'm just wondering if that's gonna be a safety concern, if you have all the people walking from the middle school crossing on that corner, and then you have traffic coming back through that.
That's why we're gonna try and make the main parking.
The majority of the parking's hopefully gonna be down here, but right now, we've got people crossing, it's a crosswalk, we've got people crossing down by the ticket booth now, and I think this actually improves upon that, because now you've got this much more queue for cars coming in, and when we have a police officer there crossing.
Thinking that it's right on the corner there, so cars
That's not-
coming out of there.
Oh, the corner going back towards Russell Street?
Yeah.
I think the line of sight is okay, though. I'll defer to the police officer, but for safety, but I think.
Not much different than what we have now.
Yeah, I know, it was,
I mean,
Why don't
there is
we
a
keep it up
crosswalk there,
more
so it's,
from, like, the ticket
but
booth?
you're right, we're putting more,
There'll be
foot traffic there.
just, regular.
Potentially more vehicular traffic.
What you,
Chuck?
We have to maybe
I
put
don't know
an
anymore.
additional light there to make sure that drivers can see.
Just explain to me where you think the crosswalk is versus where it is.
Crosswalk
The
here.
where it is.
There's no crosswalk right there.
Yeah, there is.
there is.
Really?
Absolutely.
Okay, I've never stopped there
It's
for a
right there.
student. I've
Oh,
only
it's
seen
right
the other
there.
one. Okay.
Stop
There's
yelling.
two. There's one here.
I'm sorry, I get this, I'm trying to. It's great, nobody can see me.
I think if we put the gate and the ticket booth there, we would need more lighting by definition.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah,
that would,
Yeah,
would at
we,
least
yeah,
help.
we would,
I
we
mean,
would
I
figure out
think,
the lighting and.
I think there, if we had an unlimited budget, I think there are many things that we would love to
awesome to do,
do
sure.
to improve flow and, some of the other things, but it seems like, we need to work with what we
What
have
we have.
within reason.
Mhm.
I'm okay with that.
So what do you want us to include in the plan and the cost estimate from now on for the parking lot? It doesn't seem like we can afford to do.
I don't think we can
parking lot
afford it.
right
I
now.
mean, I can see if there's any funds available through the town from some other bucket, but I don't anticipate this $457,000 unless we use all of the snow and ice. Stop yelling at me. I like it. I think, so you're asking, John, what we do with the parking? What would it
Do
cost to?
we, do we want to just leave it as is? Totally, I mean, we're taking a little bit of it. We're inside of that fence line here, but we're moving some of that curving around through here to do that. So we want to.
So you're widening.
The existing sidewalk comes through here. So we're widening this a little bit. So we might want to build this edge here in the new sidewalk and then just pave up to the existing.
I think that's,
and then
that
blend it
existing
together.
roadway stays in its current configuration, and if we're able to do some seal coating and painting like we just did at the town hall, to try to get people to
You could do,
better.
you could do jersey barriers where we have a landscape island here, and then stripe this to actually get the flow to work, to get this parking configuration.
I'm kind of, and you guys can pipe in if you agree, disagree, whatever, but I think what we do is we create a safe walking path around the facility so that we can get people to it. And it seems to me that we're not gonna be able to spend $457,000 or $200,000 on parking. I think that's one of the things that at this point, we're gonna have to shave away and take a look at doing that down the road. But I think we need to make sure that that sidewalk needs to be created for walking the perimeter. Go ahead,
And do
Eric.
we want to plan for that sidewalk to be as shown in case this parking lot ever wants to be built this
I
way?
think so.
Yeah.
I don't think you have to put the bump outs in it.
Right, but we would want to build, there's a new curb line that comes here. and then
I would say that we
all
need the berm or the
that new
curb.
pavement there. And it's gonna, you're gonna have new pavement meeting up with old cracked pavement. It's gonna look kind of weird, but that's what it's gonna be.
Right.
Then we,
Parking
and
along with,
Parking.
what about the parking along with
He drew that in.
Yeah, so that will be included, but just not this parking lot
we
down
can do
there.
that, yeah.
I think, well, yeah, if we're taking part of that roadway, I think we have to add that parking in.
Okay.
Does anybody disagree with that?
I would just widen the road and make it the single parking then. And you
Like it is
plan, make it the way it is now. That's a lot of money. You're talking,
Pavement.
Well, if we're gonna widen the roadway, it might be,
But you're not gonna widen it enough to put spaces that way. You'd only widen it to park a car.
no, but if we're widening this to do parallel parking the whole length, it might not be that much more money to do parking like this. And if it's preferred,
And you're gonna pick up.
you might wanna do that.
The other thing you could do is just, I think what you were saying was leave the parking where it is and just make the sidewalk so that this layout can be done and don't add the parking yet
Yeah, but.
on the south side, on the.
Where all the parking is?
Yeah,
With
yeah.
120, yeah. The other
Because
problem we
that's
have
another
is
thing you could
that
do.
narrowing of the Russell Street entrance, if
Right.
you will. We're taking away a lot of parking that is currently used every single day.
Yeah, that parking there.
Yeah. So, I mean, to Mike's point, we can either widen that roadway and basically mirror the existing condition, or do something like this. I don't know what the difference would be.
Well, let's see where the numbers come in if we do this versus.
In
Why
order
not?
to get the softball field on this site, we need to take that much of the field down towards the Russell Street driveway, correct? Or not have any pathway
Well,
behind. the
Not
field.
necessarily if you don't.
This is that nice kind of wide pathway between them. You
Yeah.
could scooch this back over and maybe not have to take that away. But then you
But if
you
that's
lose
your
that.
entry on the
But
corner.
then, now your safety fence is gonna be.
Right up
pretty
against
tight.
softball,
Yep.
and you've got a pretty narrow, if this is your main entrance into your facility, you've got a pretty narrow
Yeah.
walkway. You've got a 6-foot walkway through there, which doesn't give you a whole lot of wiggle room.
Hang on.
Yeah, I feel like if we're having a walkway through there, 6 feet's too narrow.
I agree with you. Yeah. So it's actually-
Like 2 people walking, I mean, you get a wheelchair, you get a
I
stroller,
was talking to
someone's
ED about
not
this tonight.
coming back.
I definitely agree with you. Kelly, Mark had his hand up first, so I'm just gonna go to him first, right?
I think if you're going to do something on the lower parking lot, I think you
Yes.
want to separate the travel lane versus the parking lane and not put in 2 rows of parking. I think you would be better off having right up against, either up against the field or on the other side, have and you can
That's
do
where
this
you
with
drive.
just striping, right? This is 2-way traffic through, and then either there's striping or Jersey barriers or something, and then you park on the other side. There's no need to have the 2 rows of parking. It would make it safer and easier for people to get in and out when they're going over to Russell Street, and it makes it clearer. And you're not going to lose the parking because you're putting it on the Whitcomb side. You're going to end up with
Actually,
a net addition.
the configuration he has there wouldn't be bad, because the way the buses could come in and the way the parents could line up.
That's what we had originally, actually, was parking, 2-way parking here, and then just a dedicated access road here.
In and out. Is that
We
what you're
pushed
talking
everything up so far, but
And you got a
You
lot more
could-
parking.
you have double parking here.
But in the other scheme, you got a lot more spaces.
Not,
We got all those angled parking
Not.
spots. Because you get the pathways going in the 22 feet between the spaces, right?
yeah. But I don't think we're gonna be doing anything with parking at this point. We're gonna just kind of design
I
it
think we're
to
kind of
accept
at that
parking
point
later.
where, but if you need to rob some of the, if you need to extend the field on the Whitcomb field, baseball field end, then we need to make sure we widen that,
Mhm.
that access road enough to either do parallel parking or do that head-on parking.
Okay. Okay.
Kelly, you have a question?
Kelly Mullen, 25 Washington Drive, and I did have to step out, so forgive me if you covered this. But with moving the field over towards Whitcomb, does that also include a new sidewalk along the goalpost side?
Yes.
Yeah, we included that.
Okay.
Would include a sidewalk around the perimeter to make sure that there was safe access all the way around. the
Now,
city.
do we, I mean, I guess this is kind of a, do we technically need 2 sidewalks there? That,
You need one on the other side of the Whitcomb
right,
side?
because that might save some space. And then the other question was, as we're talking about the pathway in between softball and the alumni field, is there any ADA compliant regulations that states
The width?
how wide a walkway needs to be?
An accessible route needs to be only 3 feet wide.
36 inches.
Really? Wow.
Anybody else? Okay.
And then 12 Farmstead Way. That design that you had last week, it says the main deck area,
Mm-hmm.
which is where you're talking about putting the concession stand now.
Right.
Correct.
So using that design and just moving that building into that area, does that work? Moving concessions into where you were just saying you were gonna move it anyway?
If we're
But-
gonna
but we're-
have,
So just get rid of the gate area?
Well, that
up
whole
the
bump, is that
playground?
kind of bumped out over there, up there?
It's taking the whole playground, yeah.
Right, but now we're talking about putting the concessions
Here.
in that
On the
main deck
outside corner,
area,
right?
observation area. So if you just slid that back in there, and then put a ticket booth,
So basically just cut this out, right?
Yeah.
This is no longer part of it.
and put
Concessions is what we're talking about here, but use the same plan, but just incorporate an
your
opening
ticket
there.
area there, but put your concession stand,
there's no walkway, in this scenario, there's no walkway, there's no separation between the two fields.
so you still have to move it
We
down.
would need to move this whole thing down to get that walkway.
I think we only need 180 or 185. I'd have to check in my
Yeah,
It, yeah, that's not gonna, I don't think matter as much, because it's just gonna cut the width.
On the
down.
radius?
It's not gonna, well, it is, we might be able to shift it over a little bit.
Right, so maybe, I mean, if we have this massive space issue and we're talking about losing or taking too much parking, creating, I mean, maybe we're back at, you know, just having our northern entrance and losing the walkway between the two. I mean, I really like it, and I really like the idea of viewing space, and I think, like, from a, you know, community experience standpoint, I think that's really valuable, but I'm wondering, just all the things we're talking out as far as new, you know, moving roads, moving parking, I'm just kind of wondering if maybe we're back at, you know,
Let's see if we can make it work with,
Okay.
we might be able to shift some things around a little bit more to
Okay.
save that, but
I like it.
Let's-
I really like it.
Yeah.
But again, I'm just like,
Let me just, because I'm not
yeah,
necessarily
no,
following.
it's
So you're saying,
it's fine.
leave it the way it is now, today?
Yeah, basically with that northern entrance and the, you know.
And leave the softball going the same direction?
Yeah, I don't have any opinions about which direction the softball field is
So
going, but
if-
basically losing, like, my understanding is the space crunch issue we're having is mostly due to that center walkway. And so that might be wrong. So I guess that's my assumption I'm making, and that's what the rest of my comments are based off of.
So we could shift the softball field in order to keep traffic coming down the pathway that it's coming down right now. Maybe just put the gate further up, down by home plate of the softball field,
Yeah.
instead of the gate down where essentially
At the south.
the red
let's,
field
let's
fence
take a
is.
look at it, 'cause I didn't realize that having that parking there was so important.
Mhm.
So now that we know that, we can either try to save it by shifting the stuff back this way a little bit, or we can rebuild it.
Yeah.
But let's see if we can kind of make this work here. I mean, I think we were going at like a 200 softball field, because that's,
That's
That'd be
big.
great to
That's-
have.
That's Cal Ripken and Little League Baseball.
we could do if we could do like a 180 or 185, that might be able to get us to scooch this back over this way a little bit. So we can look at these things, but I mean,
Do you know, Joe, what the regs are for MIA baseball, softball?
It's 200 feet, but there's a lot of fields that aren't
180 to 185?
Yeah.
I know that, up
that's
at the high school, I
preferred.
know that we've never done 200 feet.
No.
I want to say the minimum is 180, I believe.
If I could,
Yes.
I think,
Who are you?
I'm Joe Knoxon on Brandy Hall. Keeping that wide entranceway, I think that's like a focal point. I'd love to see this plan here where the gate is, and then you have the wide space where, you know, people are gonna come
Congregate.
congregate
Yeah.
and head over. I think that's a major part to leave it
agree.
that wide.
Yep, I agree. I really like it too, but again, if we're talking like it's an extra $300,000 to reconfigure all this stuff, that's where I'm at with it. Is it like the worth it factor? And so again,
Well,
I
we're gonna-
really like the area. I'd like to see if you can shift it. I guess that's really what it is.
Yeah, yeah. We could call it like the Knox Realty main deck or something like that.
Comes with a price tag though.
Yeah, right. Sorry, Joe.
So the last question I have, I guess, is regarding the building. We need restrooms.
Sal's on.
We have concessions, and are we gonna do new concessions, or are we gonna try to keep the existing concessions
All right.
somehow?
Let me ask this question. Sheila, do you have any idea what the dimensions are of the existing concession stand? Or Timmy, or
I don't know the
anyone?
dimensions.
It might,
Probably
30 by
12?
15, 30 by 15, maybe,
Maybe.
think it's that much?
I would say.
Okay. Get the existing there, John?
yep.
That's typically what they, I mean, that's,
No comment on that.
BYOS?
25
scale?
by 15.
25 by 15? 30 by 15, I can do the math.
Close, but
that's what I have on the one option, 25 by 15 also.
Okay.
I wish I'd known, I would have mentioned it last week.
Where are we at, Sal, with if restrooms and new concessions for
1,000 square feet
1,000 square feet?
with the utility room and the water.
And we were assuming
Yeah.
1,500 in the cost
Yeah.
estimate we talked about. So if we did new restrooms, new concessions,
Does that concession size meet the needs that you have?
I think the existing size is adequate. I mean, we,
It's adequate, yes, it does, but it doesn't have a sink.
Right,
or-
we'd configure it differently, I mean, we'd have
And-
we'd have to have a 3-bay sink, we'd have to have a grease trap.
And we share it, I mean, so we share it with youth, and
let me
there's enough room for both of us at the
let me
moment.
throw a wrinkle in.
Okay.
How much more would it be to have a 2-story concession building? Ballpark, I mean, you're talking, it's gonna be $120,000 for this building.
But
It's-
what's on the second floor?
I'm thinking storage. And because it's shared and, it could probably even be a
Small
pull-down.
storage with a pull-down, with small stuff that you can carry up, nothing.
new attic storage.
You could do attic storage, yeah, it just changes the truss configuration, so it doesn't necessarily, it probably adds maybe 100,000, 50 to 100,000 probably with all the.
Yeah.
Never mind.
We bid that in Hingham, I think, as an ad
But
alternate.
did you do it between the trusses, or was it one open space?
Open, I think.
Never mind. Stuff popping into my head, sorry.
We could look at that as we move along, if it makes sense, and we could do it efficiently with structural. I'd have to talk with the structural, if to add for the trusses in that configuration.
No, don't worry, we're trying to cut costs, not add costs.
We could also plan for,
It would be cheaper to plan for a pad site for a
For more.
storage building.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
if there's no plumbing and nothing in it, it's just a pre-manufactured shed,
Mhm.
basically.
you could do a 30 by 40 or a 25 by 50 or something like that metal building, right, Sal,
Yeah.
for fairly cheap. I mean,
I mean, it also could be phased later, if we have something that we have the space allocated for, and you're talking about something you could phase, and you could even have it be, part of it could be the team room, and the rest could be the storage room, and it's just, we reserve a spot on the site that works for the circulation and everything,
Yeah.
that could be done later. You could even put the slab in now,
yeah.
kind of have it be a paved area, and it's
Yeah.
ready to accept the building, and
Yeah, you put the goals and the off-season goals and stuff like that on that, rather than
Mhm.
sitting on the grass.
We've done that before where we provide the slab and then the facilities department just gets a quote for a shed building or something, they do it, or, we've done them, come back a year or two later and do them, or you can bid it as an ad alternate.
So if we're at 25 by 15 now,
But see, we're not taking into account Gary's building either with the clothing. So there would need to be,
another 10
Spot.
square feet.
yeah, there would need to be,
You have a-
there would need to be some.
he's
room
already, he
for that.
he heard me say something about reusing the ticket booth as the lava sales
Talked
shed.
about that
Is
last
that what
Like,
this building
I'm
is
not-
here? It's like
yeah,
a
let's stop
apparel?
doing that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Here. So we include
That
that.
has the lighting controls in it too.
so
Right.
it has to stay.
There's the lighting controls too.
It's a rough building.
It's a very awkward spot for it in this configuration.
Right.
It would, it would
You have a light pole between that and the
Right.
existing concessions.
I think we would want to build that into the
Right.
square footage and just move the light.
Move the electrical room.
I think so.
Build the electrical room around that.
Build the concessions around that.
Around the-
Could leave it in that
around
corner,
the
just build it the other way and build it around it.
Right.
Move it over,
attached to
move
it.
the concessions where that is.
Build the building attached.
So you're leaving the electrical connection in the same place.
Yeah.
Right.
So you don't have to do a box in the ground and do another feed over to another.
Yeah, actually, you're either gonna have to do a doghouse or.
Could, or you could have
A doghouse and just connect over.
yeah, you could do the lighting panels on their own in an enclosure. But that's not adding a whole lot
No,
money. That's
No.
not like plumbing and.
To actually move it.
I don't think so.
it's not adding much space either, because we already need a utility service room anyway, so it's a panel on the wall in the same room, but just use the opposite wall.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Although we might want to plan for future Musco, which the panels are a
Right.
little bit different now.
Well, that, knowing the size of that, that would significantly increase the size of the building. You'd probably be better off doing another lighting building later with the new lighting. if
Standalone
it's a
panel.
future
Behind the
thing.
bleachers or something.
Yeah, because you're gonna be maybe, it's about 150 square feet alone just to fit all the Musco panels down.
Yeah.
In the electrical room, so.
Yeah, we have a lot of panels.
What else is in that, what's the apparel in that building? Where,
So that's a small building that has.
is that uniform storage or?
It's,
Cheerleaders.
no, it's,
That's
we sell
t-shirts.
apparel
Spirit wear.
Okay, so you need
Spirit wear,
the, in the
but then-
concessions, you need a part of it
for that.
for that.
But then it also stores the,
The down markers, all the pylons and all the field supplies.
So it's,
Right.
it's storage too.
Corner flags for
Storage.
Just
soccer.
what's going on under the bleachers?
That's
Like
open.
where your walkways are, is there any place, do they build in,
So
like
it's
metal,
It's basically just stone,
metal
right?
storage?
Like
You know,
cages?
yes,
Yeah.
well, not, yeah, but,
Weather sealed or?
yes.
Doing them weather tight is tricky.
Under the bleachers?
Bleachers.
For equipment storage, I mean, you might be able to get it dry enough. It's never going to be watertight.
Why?
Because the bleachers, well,
You'd have to build
It
another
can be,
roof
but it
underneath.
needs to be,
deck.
it needs to be a.
Yeah.
Like a substantial building?
Correct.
It's basically the bleachers are, you know, they click together and they're not meant to be, they're not sealed, they're not flashed, it's not a building enclosed structure.
So if the apparel were with the concessions, would it want a separate window to sell?
yes.
Okay. And then,
Like that.
You just want it all
Lonely in
talking.
that building.
Hmm?
Huh?
You just want it all talking.
I want it all.
and then how much do you need for the storage? For the, if we included, if you're building the building, the field
As far as the
storage that
stuff
you
that's
need
being
for the
stored in
stuff
that
that's
building
being
right
stored
now, 10 by
yeah.
10. Yeah, that's more
not
than.
even,
yeah, it's not
literally, you
even-
just need to open a door.
Really 5 by 5.
Put a cart in
It's-
there.
it's- Yeah.
So-
it's- The cart is probably 2 feet wide by 3 feet long, maybe 3.5 feet
More,
long.
yeah.
So like a 5x5 room?
Yes,
Almost like a locker.
right, put it in the same cabinet room as the electrical panel.
Yeah, but if you did make that a contiguous building, I would say that would
I
be.
mean, to add a
very-
5x5 room to a building you're already building, to meet that need is gonna be your most cost effective, rather than another piece somewhere else. So, I mean, it does make the building a little bit bigger, but it's not.
So the 5 by 5 room is for just the storage
Storage
of
only.
the stuff.
Yep.
All right, that's not what we put Gary.
It's not gonna be any of the field storage or any, you
I
know.
offered that, I didn't like it.
So,
Yeah, what goes in the 5x5?
So any of
The
the
down
pylons,
markers, the pylons,
chains,
the numbers for the yard markers,
Yep.
and that's it.
the flags for soccer.
Yeah.
The flags of soccer, yeah.
No highway equipment?
no.
Is it?
With a turf field, you get a groomer. And you'll need a place to keep the groomer.
So, from a lot of the visits that I've gone on, some of the people had deep pockets and they built this nice storage facility and they have a garage bay and they roll everything in. But many of the facilities I've been at, under the bleachers, it's all 3/4 to 1 inch stone and they're literally exposed. They're outside and that's
You
where
just
they
stick it under there. and-
That's where they leave them.
Brown University has it like that. It's outdoors. They don't have anything special. I mean, they got more money than
WPI has it like that, Western New England has it like that.
Everything's left out.
Yeah.
They're just groomers.
Yeah.
In theory, they're being used
Mhm.
frequently. Sal, the press box is not considered part of the structures, correct?
Correct. That would be in the package with the bleacher.
The flat
As
surfaces?
is, yep.
Okay. Can I ask a question about that, John? Kind of reverting back, sorry to steal your thunder, Sal, but you mentioned having a lift to the press box. Depending upon the size of the press box, is that a necessity to have ADA compliance to the press box?
In Massachusetts, the press box needs to be accessible, no matter what, I believe.
ADA is under 500 square feet, federal, but in Massachusetts, it must be, the Massachusetts accessibility law requires it to be.
If you're in
accessible.
any other state, you
have
don't
the
need a
exemption.
lift.
Okay, because
Mass, you do.
I haven't been able to determine that, but I have seen other
Yep.
states where,
They've talked about
Revising it.
revising that, but they haven't yet.
Assume that lift services the bleachers as well.
well, the bleachers are going to be handicap accessible at the lower level.
There'll be a ramp in front.
There'll be a
As well.
ramp,
Because
there'll
you
be a
said
ramp off the
some up
side.
from.
There'll either be a ramp off the side, or you could use that lift for accessible seating up
Just have
top.
an open platform on the top.
Typically, you don't. Usually you have a ramp in the accessible seating in the front.
Okay.
Would that
Is
ramp,
there-
because of the real estate that it would eat up, would likely go down that end? Or would it go this
Not
end to be
necessarily.
as
You'd want it
accessible?
here, because you don't want the
And then, okay, so you have
handicap
that.
people having to go all the way down.
The stairs would be right next to it too, right?
We'd make it, it would probably come along the front of the field and then up here. We've got a lot of length there. You know what I mean? It would
I
probably
know
go
what you're
along.
saying, I've seen some other designs that,
Switchback ones.
yeah.
You can do switchbacks, or it depends on how it configures there, how it all lays out.
Okay.
Two questions.
Kelly,
Kelly Mullen, 25 Washington Drive. I just had a question about, like, what are we assuming for, like, size and shape of bleachers versus what we currently have? And what is our kind of space configuration from the bleachers to the fencing around the field?
The current bleachers are, well, the new ones will be about the same size. The current ones are 130 by 25, and the new ones are, we're showing it, we gotta get an actual bleacher design in here. We're showing it 130 by 30, roughly, so it's about the same size.
it's a little
they're-
wider because you have that lower level platform.
Got the lower level platform in the front. Typically, we do it where the front of it is on the field. You have like a polyboard skirting in the front.
Yep.
So the fence line runs into the front of the bleachers basically, so you don't access it from the front.
Right.
You access it from the sides or from the back. And then the rear of it, I'm assuming is going to be fenced in, because obviously you want your control access through here, so we'll have a fence in the back.
So that brings me to my next question of so now what's the space configuration from the fence to the field? As, you know, I've got my cheer jacket on tonight, so I'm kinda, you know, where would the cheerleaders stand? And I'm assuming there's space in the bleachers for the band to sit as well. I mean, we have it now.
There's nothing dedicated right now. I mean, there are gonna be bleachers in exactly that. We're gonna rope off an area for the event.
We provided an extra swath of turf
Do
here.
you see that bump out, Kelly, in the
Can you
gray?
see it?
Yep.
So the rectangular field runs up to the white, and then as it gets closer to the bleacher coming from Russell Street, there's a diagonal right above where John has the
Yep.
scale now. That whole gray area right there is extra space that we've added specifically for that.
Okay.
So it's about 10 feet beyond what you would normally need. So for like a football game, the football sidelines in here somewhere. So you have that 20 or so feet for the team to be there, and then you have a little extra space, but then we've also added another 10 feet in front of the bleachers or kind of off to the side, not knowing exactly how the cheerleaders use it, but at least that space is there.
Okay.
It's definitely incorporated into the design.
It's even written on there, cheerleaders.
Actually, it does say cheerleaders in that space.
Okay, I mean, I just know from prior games,
That-
sometimes the football teams get a little
That was on our
antsy
list.
if the cheerleaders are right behind them.
Yep.
Like right now, we kind of have the division of the poles and the rope.
Mm-hmm.
And I know
Very
when
safe
we've
system.
gone to games where that doesn't exist, it's tough because then the coaches are worried about the boys running into the girls are worried about being ran into.
This won't guarantee that won't happen. But we're planning for it. Mark?
Mark Rambacher, 205 Hartwell. I had a question for like vehicular access, for things like graduation. You're driving cars out around the field. You have a lot of equipment that you need to move, and I wondered how the vehicles get out and around, right?
On the field?
Well, they don't drive on the field now, they drive around the field now, and are they still going, I mean, they can go, basically drive all the way around. They come in through the gate at the bottom, drive up, and go in front of the bleachers. Is that still going to be possible? Or how are we going to move the equipment?
I mean, this isn't the first field these guys have designed, and that's being done all over the place. There's vehicles driving on fields every day. I mean, like.
I just didn't see the lines, how we're doing it
Gates
without
aren't-
driving.
the gates, we
driving on
haven't
the
designed
fields.
gates, we haven't, that will be incorporated, Mark.
Yeah.
I'll answer
Yeah,
it that way. John, you don't have to answer it. That
We'll
will be
have-
incorporated.
Yeah, we'll have gates.
It's not a gating question, it's a pathway question.
So we'll be able to get vehicles in there to accommodate everything that we do at that field.
Yep.
All right, so as far as the square footage.
Yep.
And as far as the placement of this building, you feel as though it might be
Maybe
better
near
served to,
somewhere.
okay.
Right, we're gonna be in here somewhere. We're gonna make that, there's an existing light here, so we're gonna have separation from that. We have room here, I think that utility corridor is more over here, so we're gonna basically probably get rid of this, fancy seating area in this building here, and we're gonna have, yeah. We're gonna rework that area.
Another question that always comes up with these buildings, as we've talked about before previously, was the seasonal use versus, year-round use. And really just seasonal use is what's preferred, that we'll shut down the building in the winter. But accommodations for heat, for when to heat the building and the restrooms a little bit, just to take the chill off when you get into October, November, is that something we want to plan for?
I would
only ask
say
that because
yes.
it gets into the energy code.
I would
and-
say yes, and the reason I say yes, because we've all been in restrooms where they've had space heaters and stuff to try to make sure that they're not getting freezing pipes. So I would say plan for it.
Okay.
You guys have any,
Does that-
Thanksgiving Day can be cold.
Yep.
Does that lead
Yeah,
to
it would
another
be a shame
question,
to
Sal,
build it
about
and have
building construction?
No, it does, because typically if they're seasonal, we do a single white block building. So it's block on the outside and block on the inside, and that's all it is. If you heat it and have to meet the energy code, now you really can't do that with that assembly, because you can't get enough insulation inside a block to meet the energy code.
Heat's not that important, so.
Okay.
So
No, I'm
my
only kidding.
question is though, will the pipes freeze in the bathroom though? Will they?
No, winterized it will.
I think so. I mean, I really, to be honest,
Mhm.
I honestly don't think the snack shack needs to be heated. We don't have it now. We have little space heaters by
I mean,
people's
typically what we
feet.
do is we'll put an extra circuit in,
Right.
so that you can have a space heater to
But it's
keep
not
it,
plumbed now.
warm,
Um,
because then it doesn't have to meet the energy code, because it's a temporary condition.
Okay,
Right.
so that's typical. That's what you're typically
So-
doing now?
That's what we typically do when it's a seasonal building and they don't want
It
to.
is definitely gonna be a seasonal building.
Right.
Let's say cold water's left in the pipe overnight and it's 32 degrees before the whatever and the pipe bursts.
Okay, so I'd rather replace the pipe 5 times
Okay.
than pay what the difference is gonna be for,
What's the
To meet the
difference?
And we
A lot?
haven't really, as long as you shut it down beginning of December, we haven't seen freezing pipes inside the building.
Doesn't typically get cold enough for a long enough period of time to
do that.
be an issue.
Aren't we trying to
typically.
use this like March 1st?
And there is one heater that's still in the building that would be, and that is in the plumbing room where you drain down, where all the valves are to drain down, blow down the building for the winter. And there's a heater in that room by code, so it doesn't have to meet the energy code. But we usually try and leave that open to the plumbing chase so that heat goes back into that and it helps to alleviate that issue.
Block's the cheapest?
No, block is the cheapest for the most durable, but not the cheapest. Because wood frame is
Stick built.
significantly cheaper when you can insulate it and then put tile on the inside. And really, recently with the cost of block and the labor for block, we found that it's about the same price or cheaper to do tile on the inside and do a wood frame building.
And you think it's quicker
That we could
to
insulate.
It's
build it?
quicker. It's quicker to build.
now they can insulate.
I'd like more information. I do not like the idea of plumbing a building and not having some sort of heat source, because then we've got like, oh shoot, it's gonna be like unseasonably cold.
Right.
And someone needs to like run over, oops, that person. I don't know that, I mean, I'd like to see the numbers.
Yeah,
I'd like to see the numbers
We could do
before
narrative both ways.
I just don't,
if you could, that'd be good.
Yeah.
yeah, I just don't like a plumbed building without.
But as far as the
visibility of heat.
design, so we're doing a design to price.
Right.
For the building itself, are we gonna use block? Are we gonna use,
I think we use wood frame if we're gonna have the option to insulate it and heat it.
Yeah.
That's,
So
Give
if
me
you
more
meet
options
code, if we
for-
do wood frame insulation and
Yeah.
tile,
yeah,
or similar cost to the block,
I
or
think
we
so.
can meet code
Yeah.
and we could heat, we
Yeah.
could put. we could
and
put
the
electric
construction's a little
Right.
quicker?
And the construction's a little bit quicker. But it's a very different building to plan for.
Mhm.
Mm.
And the look is different. I mean, it's not, it's, you know, you end up with a building with probably siding on the outside, looks more residential,
Mhm.
doesn't look as,
What if you did like a 3-foot block?
The bottom?
we typically do like 18 inches of brick face or stone or something at the bottom, more as a brick with the studs behind it, just to give you the durability for mowers up against it and, you know, things hitting up against the building.
Yeah, if you could do the narrative both ways, that'd be great.
And you did say modular earlier, so did you mention modular?
Modular for the storage
Storage
building.
For storage
facility.
building.
Mm.
Yeah.
The restroom, modular restroom building, we just did analysis on this for another project, and they actually come back more money per square foot than what our traditional
Mm.
building traditionally has been from what we've done in the past 3 years.
Cost to tie in and.
Yeah.
Because they don't include, with their pricing, they don't include the actual utilities, bringing it in, plumbing it, sewer, the foundation,
Right.
any upgrades at all. So when you actually do the math out, it's a little more expensive.
I mean, if you do one that's more like a trailer, those are cheaper, but then you have big ramps outside to get in it, and it's really just a temporary building. It's not, but to do a nice modular building, and it's not easy to do in Massachusetts with the bidding laws.
Oh, okay. Okay.
It's be under $100,000.
All right. What other questions do we have relative to the building?
I think that's pretty good to get us the next step along the way. We take all of those, your needs, and get them to understanding the interest is getting it as small as possible, you know, to kind of meet your program. And leaving the team room and the storage room as something that's a separate piece that could be ad alternate or phased out, or just so that there's the flexibility in the plan.
Anybody got any other questions about the building?
Any thoughts on where that, I mean, do we want to talk about where that building would go?
Which one?
With that, the storage maintenance building?
Maybe that goes over.
If you're gonna go a slab, I'd go, yep, right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think if we were gonna put something in that's.
Because, I mean, you might want to do it over here, because you could use it for both of these fields, or you could do it over here, so it's central to everything.
If you did it over there, how much would it be to just have an overhang roof so that the cheerleaders, if it was raining, could just scooch under there?
Depends on what kind of overhang roof you do. I mean, we did something in Medway where it was it's probably like a 40 by 40 or a 50 by 50 wood structure. And it was a nice wood structure, but it was just cedar posts with a
Like a
roof
15
on it.
pavilion.
It was a pavilion, and it was like 50 to 80 grand to do that.
And it puts us kind of far away from the field.
What's that?
It kind of puts us far away from the field, further
Well, the
away.
band could scooch also.
Yeah.
Doesn't have to be the cheerleader scooch.
The whole game scooch, so we're.
Could you build a storage shed around that electrical panel, and leave the electrical panel where it is? For the lighting?
I just think that is dead center on this area where you want it to be open. That building's gonna be there. This is kind of your gathering area.
Everyone walks by
So let me
there.
ask you something. On the concession stands, would the bathrooms be on the ends?
That's true.
You'd want them to have it so that the toilets are back to back.
So maybe the
So the
ladies
doors
would
would
be
be
in the
next
end
to each
and
other,
the-
probably
Oh,
on the
okay.
back side.
Oh,
Probably on.
all right. So could you pour a big enough pad to build like a shed off the building? So keep it all together, storage, but don't make it,
Don't finish the pad where the storage is, don't finish the building where the storage is going to be.
yeah, and then we just build a shed, I guess.
Yeah,
Like with maybe like barn doors opening.
just an actual shed.
Yeah.
But he's attached to it. It's probably better as a separate
Yeah.
piece than attached.
Let us reconfigure this area,
I wanted to try.
and then we'll see where it fits in.
The garage.
Do you have opinions about location of maintenance shed, Jim?
But when the school takes it over, I don't know.
Oh.
Don't play it, Mr.
Never
Glide,
mind.
Don't play it.
He doesn't.
Clyde.
There's
Don't
stuff
keep
doesn't
anything
go in
down
there.
and out, all goes back.
Right, it just sounded like possibly we were gonna start keeping stuff down there, so figured I'd ask.
All right, I think we've got direction.
I think so. Eric, you got a question?
Just one more question in terms of the cost. So is the maintenance equipment included in the cost?
We don't know yet.
So
I think.
if it's synthetic, that would incorporate the cost into whatever.
So
that-
the number he gave us was synthetic, right? That big, 3.5 million or whatever. That was
Well, the number.
assuming synthetic.
So the number for synthetic was 300 plus 400. If we were to go synthetic, so, am I off?
The 1.7 million horizontal build included synthetic, assuming approximately $300,000 for an alternative infill.
Right.
So does that include maintenance equipment?
Yes.
That includes, you get a groomer,
Okay.
basically, with it, not the maintenance building, though. Yeah.
Is that what you were talking about, the groomer?
Yes.
And then with the groomer, you need something to actually hold the groomer, which is a
We had a lot of
gator
young
or a
strapping lads.
golf cart or something with a trailer.
Senior class.
Some small piece of trailer that freshman isn't included, but most schools have already. You guys have something like that?
John Deere tractor with turf tires.
Time to do one.
All right. I don't think does anybody up there have any more questions for Gail, for John, Sal, or Maggie? It's getting kind of late. Jim?
Yeah, just, I guess, in regards to the parking lot, I know he said at the beginning, making it alternate. I mean, is it worth putting it on there and just getting a price? And, it almost seems like the parking lot's more of a different job than the ball field anyway.
For what we're doing now, too, I mean, we're trying to set the budget to go to town meeting in November.
Right.
So we're trying to nail down so we can present to the town what the plan is right? And then what amount of money this is gonna be. If after that step happens, we wanna add this into the bid documents as an alternate and get it bid and priced, I think we can do that. But I think that this group needs to probably commit that that's probably not gonna happen
Right.
now. We can bid it and see where it comes in, and we can design it as such, but for this immediate task, seems like we're not really doing that.
You've got those numbers in the sheet that you're working off of, you've got those numbers in there, when you came up with the 457 on option one for that parking portion of it, so
Mhm.
we kind of have what those numbers are. And I agree with you, I think we should keep it in and know that we need to back that out in order to,
So the plan that we're gonna come up with is basically not gonna show parking here.
yeah, okay, I'm okay with that.
We can put it back
You're
in
saying we should
later.
keep it in there?
No, I mean, that works as well, I guess.
I mean, I think we can certainly say, listen, through the process, we determined that this is an extra $500,000. As much as we want this to be part of it, it's gonna have to be something that we do down the road, and the town's gonna have to find another way to pay for it. We'll, I think we can present it that way, but we're, to John's point, and kind of what we're charged with is to take care of the renovation of the alumni facility, and we kind of incorporated the parking because we thought we might be able to. So your deliverable then will be everything inside of the sidewalk curb, except for over coming into Russell Street, where you want to put that head-on part, where we want to
Yeah,
put that
exactly.
head-on part.
We're gonna show what's in the cost estimate. So if it's not in the cost estimate, which the parking's gonna come out, then we're not gonna show on the plan, basically how it works.
All right. Kelly had her hand up.
I guess this is less Gale and more town, but is there a way to potentially have a second article or warrant on the docket for town meeting that says, hey, we just, if we approve this, it doesn't include any parking, so would you also be willing to approve this other warrant to do
Wouldn't it
the
just be
parking at
option
the
A,
same
option
time because it will be cheaper than doing it after the fact?
I'm not gonna tell you that can't happen, but we're kind of under a crunch right now. And the Board of Selectmen's not scheduled to meet again before the warrant closes. So we'd have to, no, we can't do it.
Okay.
We wouldn't be able to, I shouldn't say we can't do it. According to Mass General Law, there is the opportunity for us to open up the warrant and go against our policy and make an exception to add another warrant article. It can be done, but it hasn't been policy to do things that
It's
way.
not necessary, okay, that's fine.
So, Jim, I know one second, because Mark had his hand up first.
Mark Rambacher, 205 Hartwell. I think you want Gale to design the parking lot. Whether you decide to bid the parking lot or not, that's a different thing. But the parking lot should be part of the design that they're producing. Otherwise, you're going to have to go back and hire someone to design the parking lot the next time, right? So you might choose not to bid it, but that's a different.
And if we wanna bid it as an alternate, then we're gonna have to fully design it anyhow, so. Yeah, I
It's a good
would
point.
agree with that.
Is that kind of where you were going, Jim?
No, I mean, that is in the grand scheme to do that parking lot anyway. So the PMBC's working on it. I mean, again, why should the alumni field be saddled with that cost when it's already in the works, if you want to say?
Like I said, it's been going on 6 or 7 years.
You know, it would be a different, pot of money, as
Yeah.
they say.
What's interesting too is that not doing anything to that parking lot gets us out of the 100-foot wetland buffer, which
Helps to move
means
the
that we
process.
wouldn't necessarily need to permit it through conservation. You could permit it now, so that it's ready to go when you want to do it,
Yeah.
but that, it's another kind of piece of the pie, and it's,
Yeah,
it just could
so
lengthen the process.
what do you
a
guys
little
think
bit.
as far as getting it designed? We're kind of already into it knee-deep, right? So,
Makes sense. to design.
That's gonna be kind of step 2 anyhow. After town meeting, we're gonna go into the next kind of phase of fully designing this and permitting it and getting it out to bid, so that would be something that we would do in that phase anyhow.
Okay.
So we don't have to really worry about it too much right now, but, I mean, you know, we'd love to design that.
I want to try to get you guys out of here, but I just want to make sure, does anybody else have anything else for these guys? What about you guys? No? Anybody in the committee? I mean, it's 9:57. You got to drive to, like, Connecticut or something.
We're good, we're good. We should probably meet again.
We should.
I'm thinking meet again in 2 weeks, which is the 12th.
Okay. I'm not available October 12th. That doesn't mean that you guys can't meet.
We have a meeting scheduled that night.
You do. All right.
Yeah, 4/12.
That's why you're not.
We have one.
This group has a meeting scheduled that night?
Yeah.
Is it blocked off?
Well, I just found out today I'm stuck in surgery.
Yeah,
So,
October 12th.
7 o'clock here.
I don't really like Tucker. I'll be here.
7:30?
We have a meeting
do have a
scheduled for
meeting
next
scheduled for
Tuesday, right?
4th.
Yeah. 4/12/18 was what we had scheduled.
Yeah, 4, 12, and 18, it was when we're scheduled.
Mike Lynn?
So, yeah, so next Tuesday, let's try to get the athletic director in to do his presentation again. John, if I could maybe get on a call with you and the AD to go over some of these.
On next Tuesday on the 4th?
Yeah.
Actually, I have a hearing in Groton that night, so I might be able, if you want to meet up in the afternoon,
Okay.
do that pretty easily.
You know, we have a courtyard Marriott here now.
Yeah, I know. So, if you want to do like, if you want to meet up at like 4 o'clock or something, I could probably do that.
Okay.
Are we gonna meet here on October?
I think we're here on the 4th.
Yep.
right?
Yep.
And the 12th?
Yep. 12th, 18th.
All right. All right, so John, on the 4th, you think you might be able to do something around 4 o'clock in the afternoon?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you, Mike, Glenn, and I can.
Mm-hmm.
Mike Lynn won't be able to.
He's got that old football thing, huh?
Just saying.
Yeah, good point. Yeah, Mike's still got the field coaching.
We can get on a call too, anytime
Let's
you
do a
want.
con call, yeah.
Yeah, that's fine.
If you can send me the PDFs of the
Yep.
stuff that you went over tonight,
Yep.
that way I can actually put it out there so everybody can see it. We'll
Yep.
put it on.
Did everyone sign this sign-in sheet?
Yep.
Okay.
Will you send those to me too when you get them?
PDFs? Yeah, well, actually, if you have everybody there.
Yeah, we're gonna do meeting minutes to capture all the items we talked about, and we'll attach PDFs as well.
Okay. Is everybody satisfied as far as public input? You guys, anybody have anything else? Yeah, so public input, just any member input as part of the public? You are part of the public, so. Julie, you have anything? No?
I do. 3 things, real quick. Number 1, Stephanie Mullen built for her Girl Scout Silver project 4 picnic tables that are sitting down at Fay Park right now. I just want to thank everyone from the police union, patrolmen's union, donated $100 to go towards Stephanie's project. I'll present them with a check. Also, today, they, police union gave $1,000 to Alumni Field Maintenance. So that's, I'll get that check to you guys for that.
Thank you.
And tomorrow, if anybody's interested, 5:30 p.m., Mass State Police wives will be here. We'll be doing blue ribbons tomorrow.
Are you giving the blue ribbons away? What are you doing?
Yeah, they handle it, so.
So Mass State Police,
Yeah,
police
I saw
wise.
that on.
Yeah, come here,
They
5:30.
give
Okay.
us ribbons to then.
Just
hang all
first.
If you want to hang one around your
Oh,
oak
good.
tree or.
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
If anybody's interested.
4 o'clock, you said?
5:30.
5:30.
You can come at 4.
There's a Keurig in the back there, Sheila.
And then you can come back for the school committee meeting.
Awesome.
That's it.
I
All
don't
right,
mind
the
that.
only other thing, I'm gonna go, not really for a shameless plug, but there is a golf tournament this weekend for the Lady Tigers basketball team.
Yep.
It's at Townsend Ridge Country Club. If you still want to get in, I'm sure you can get in. I know that we've lost a few golfers, and just want to offer condolences to the Rassa family. Joseph Rassa passed away this past week, and his wake is actually on Sunday from 1 to 5 at Badgers. But, so a lot of golfers aren't going to be there, so if there's anybody that is able to make it to Townsend Ridge, you can get a hold of myself, or Stephen Gentile is actually running the whole thing as one of the assistant coaches for the team. If you can't make it and you want to make a donation, you can get a hold of Stephen as well. So that's, again, our condolences to the Rassa family, and if you can make it to the tournament. Kind of a
Isn't there a lava fundraiser?
Yeah.
lava
We wanna hear from Lava.
fundraiser is
Saturday night.
Saturday night?
Saturday night.
Billiards.
yes.
Rock
Billiards,
Rock of
At the
Ages.
Billiards
What time?
Club, 7?
7.
7
Yep.
o'clock at the Billiards
There'll
Club
be
fundraiser for,
Appetizers there, $25 per person at the door. You can pay at the door.
Raffles, and you don't have to be there
Raffles.
to buy raffle tickets. You can buy raffle tickets even if you're not there.
this is like the regular public service
I
announcement.
know. One more question though, related to this. When will we have the field maintenance committee come in and just do a little presentation? Would that be something we do?
Yeah,
Yeah?
maybe after Rock of Ages, they can give us an update of, what they've been doing, what they plan on doing,
Yep.
and maybe how much the.
I think it would be
they have to
good.
raise.
And you also mentioned coaches at some point are coming in, but not before, not with Mike. You
Um,
don't think they should come in with Mike?
If, I'll leave it up to Mike.
Okay.
If he feels though he wants to have the coaches in to help him out or to add something to his presentation.
Right.
Wasn't he getting input?
He's definitely getting input from all his coaches, and he does communicate with them all, as you know.
Yes, and
All right,
also approve the minutes,
yes, so.
but I don't have copies, sorry, my printer's
All right, so we'll approve minutes at the next meeting on the 4th.
Wait,
And
But we still haven't approved the minutes.
no, I know, I was building a playground, I didn't type them up yet.
That's okay.
I'll email those out. But seriously, there were so many people at the Castle on the Trees build. I spent
That's
probably
awesome.
26 hours there. And there were a lot of very capable and very willing people in the town. So I would just say, like, it'd be cool to harness that energy again
Absolutely.
for an opportunity to build like a lean-to or something for cheer cover. I mean, honestly, it
No,
was
absolutely.
just really cool. And I think that people are absolutely willing to come out and put in a little elbow grease to,
Yeah, I
make
know.
something like that happen, so.
I know, I know Joe Cataldo Nurseries
Yeah.
did a lot, and I'm sure there's other businesses that did a lot, and there's a lot of people that provided food, and there's just, the whole community jumped in, so I agree.
Yeah.
Littleton Lumber's always been good about helping out. I know when I was president of youth baseball, they helped out with a lot of different projects, building sheds and things like that, so there's
Highway
there's
department.
certainly opportunities.
Is there a lot?
All right, so,
Motion closed?
I mean,
motion
well,
to adjourn.
the only other thing.
Hold on.
At some point, we're gonna have to talk about synthetic or grass. Because you can't keep going.
We don't have a grass number tonight.
Yeah,
So can we go with whatever
Yeah,
number you
yeah,
gave us,
you
less
get a ballpark.
600,000
You didn't have
as our
actual
grass number,
numbers.
Joe? Yeah. That's a solid number.
Yeah.
Whatever number we're going forward with, less $600,000 will give us whatever, that project,
That's a
whether
pretty
it's
good
the
number.
grass
Yeah.
deal. Okay. And it's safe to assume that the
I mean, depending
softball
on the
field is
install,
grass.
I mean, if you do, like, like we were talking about before, organic is gonna be probably closer to 200,000 versus the 300,000, so plus or minus 5 to 600,000.
Okay. So 6 is the high. I'd rather use the high number.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Sounds good.
Motion to adjourn?
We've got a motion to adjourn. Seconded by Mr. Fleury. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, abstentions, unanimous. Thank you very much. Have a good
Thank
night.
you.
Next meeting is the 4th, right here at 7:30.